Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name's Candace. Happy Friday. This is the very first live that we're actually doing in 2026. We are here live on January the 2nd and we are doing live astrology readings on the channel. If you guys can see me, give me a thumbs up, like the stream, and make sure you subscribe. Hit that button below and make sure you click the bell so you guys get alerts for my videos. I'm always here on Fridays at 6 o'clock p.m. Central Time. That's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. We alternate between tarot and astrology, but this week we're talking all things connected to the full moon in Cancer taking place tomorrow. So thank you guys for joining me. We are busy, man. It is crazy. So we actually have already closed the queue. So if you're watching this and you want to get a reading, unfortunately, we already have our limit for readings this evening, so I hope to catch you guys back here in 2 weeks, or you can come through next week for live tarot. So much stuff is going on, and it's the first of the month, so let me give you guys the rundown. For those of you guys who don't know, I do offer memberships on my channel. If you guys want to support me as a full-time content creator, there is 4 different levels. Level 1, you just support my work, and big thank you. We've seen a huge growth with that. Level 2, you guys are going to get a shout out. You're going to hear the monthly shout outs in just a second. Level 3, you guys are going to get my daily horoscope club where you can see the horoscopes for the 12 signs that I post on my community tab. And level 4, you guys get all of those things plus 1 reading once a month with me. We take our level 4 members first. So if you guys want to regularly get a reading with me, it's a great way to kind of get some insight monthly, and you can choose which one you want and you can choose which Friday you want. So definitely subscribe to my memberships if you guys like my content. I'm here Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays with long formats. We've got Sundays astro weather. We have new and full moon reports, monthly horoscopes, taroscopes. And if you guys haven't already seen it, we put out a 5-hour-long 2026 kind of webinar for free. So it's on the channel. I talk to you guys about everything that I'm going to be breaking down throughout this next year, all the retrogrades, the eclipses, the major planetary ingresses, the aspects they're making, and my thoughts for the Saturn-Neptune conjunction. There's like a whole history lesson in that. So definitely check that out if you guys want to know what's happening in 2026. And a big thank you to everybody. We got some donations, so thank you guys for supporting that. On to the rest of the program. So it's the beginning of the month. So if you are a level 4 member, I know there's some of you guys that are peppered in here. Deanna, Winky, Rosie, and Coco. We got you guys. But if you are a level 4 that has not kind of popped in yet, let me know. We can get you in. And I want to say thank you to all of my my supporters who are level 2 through 4 on the channel. I want to give you guys a shout out. So Addie, Dana Diamond, My Faith, Shidarina, we've got Winky, Amanda, Rocio, Love Night, we've got Script Shaman, Amanda Hubbard, Hearn, we've got Ariel J, Contessa of the Divine, Haley, we've got Donald, Neo Americana, Coco, I didn't recognize your name, New Me, we've got Vic, Taylor Small, we've got Enchanted Crossroads, Miss Self-Destruct, Patty, the Zahaya, Rosie's in here, Justine, Jess McAdams, we've got Mia, Sharon Grant, Alicia, we've got Deanna, Nancy, Melissa, Kathy, always Lauren, Janie Doe, let's see, Belovedy, Katie, Katie Crate 8, Ashley Johnson, Sharon, we've got Claire, Master Metaphysical, Adeline, Phoenix Moon, Grow Up Together, Taliba, and Susan Wexler. Some of you guys have been members for over 2 years. Some of you guys have been supporting me for such a long time. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. And those are your guys' shout outs for the month. Let me say hi to everybody who's in the chat. I know we've got a lot of people here. Deanna's cashing in. What's up, girl? We've got Mr. Powers. I got your, Junie, I got your information. I didn't realize and connect the dots until I saw the different names, but I've got you. What's up, Winky? Rosie, you're on my list. Coco's on my list. Good evening. David's here. We've got Grace. Hi, Grace. I've got you too. What's up, Blondie? We've also got, who else? Margot. Let's see, Ronick West, what's up guys? Jess, Sunny side up. Hi everybody from Sydney. What's up, GV Tarot? I am Denise. Sorry guys. Yeah, usually we have time, but I think everything got so screwed up with the last, the new moon in Sagittarius when we were doing the readings. It was like there was an issue with PayPal and they all got kind of backlogged. So I think everybody kind of popped in today. Plus it's going to be a full moon. So did I come through? Yeah. So let me give you guys the list because sometimes your PayPal names are different than your YouTube names. And I'm like, who is this? So if you hear your name, that means I have you on my list and you're in the queue and you got in. So Deanna, Winky, Rosie, and Coco, you guys are my level 4s. We're going to take you first. Then we've got Mr. Powers, Alyssa's got a Sinistry, Lakshmi, Grace, Carla, Jiet, am I saying your name right? Alicia, Amanda, Jessica, Sarah, and Free Spirit also has a Sinistry. So if you heard your name, don't worry, I've got you. And I've already got all the charts in too, so you guys don't have to watch me struggle on the internet trying to put all that stuff in. No worries. I made sure that I checked my email because I know sometimes people send me emails when they forget their info. But yeah, whenever you guys get readings, just put the info in the memo. And then I know who you are and I know what we're looking at. So we're gonna, when you hear me kind of calling out your name, I'll call out a couple people at a time just so you know your reading's coming up. If you can't wait, no worries. We leave the lives up so you guys can go back and listen to these readings at a later date. Sometimes people will comment and timestamp when their reading is so they can return to it. And you'll be able to kind of see it and leave comments in the future too and let me know like how your reading plays out if you want to give me some feedback. So let's go ahead and start with Deanna, and then we're going to take Winky and then Rosie. All right, so let me scroll up to see what's going on with you, Deanna. I know that we've got a couple birthdays in the house tonight. So happy birthday to those of you guys who are having your birthday or your solar return today. Deanna's one of them. She says, Happy New Year, cashing in. It is her birthday, her solar return. She has a new moon opposing her sun. How should I move for the next few months? I definitely want to start really transitioning from my traditional role into more of the esoteric stuff, but I don't know how to do it. I'm really at a crossroads with Irishman. He doesn't want to get married yet. I don't actually need to get married, but I do want to live in Ireland, and I'm waiting to hear from the college in Cork. And I think that might be in, and then it cut off. So is there something else that I'm missing? Was your solar return in LA, or are you still in? I mean, we're gonna look at it from LA because that's where you live. But are you still out of the country? Happy calendar New Year to everyone. Somebody else said happy New Year, happy Muggle New Year. Those of you guys who know, you know it's not like the real New Year yet. We're still wrapping stuff up. But let's talk a little bit about the. Well, first of all, let's look at I want to see what your annual perfection is because you're going to have a new Time Lord now. So you're now ruled by the moon. So one takeaway is now that you're in a Cancer annual perfection year is that, yeah, lunar transits are going to pack a punch, right? So every month, my recommendation is you need to know which houses you're going to be having the new and the full moons in. I have found that the full moons are a little bit more prominent when you have a Cancer year. And then we're also going to be looking at the themes of your natal moon because the moon is the ruler of Cancer. So you're in an annual perfection year 12. So that means from January 2nd, 26 to around your solar return, which will be in 27, when planets go through the 12th house. Okay, so I'm talking about from like whole sign perspective. Like Jupiter being there is going to be a year of reflecting on, you know, your beliefs and also opportunities for travel and also creative projects, and could also represent like a romantic partner, you know, in a foreign land and kind of being like, where is this going to go? And then on top of that, you're going to want to watch when you have like lunar eclipses. So every month you have a full moon. Then you're going to want to watch the lunar eclipses, which are going to be taking place right at the beginning of March. And then we're going to see another one that's going to be happening in August. And then you also want to watch when planets go through Cancer. So that'll be roughly, you know, June and July. You'll see a Mars transit that's going to go through there too. But in theory, just applying the perspective of like your Time Lord for the year and how it's kind of set up in your natal chart, your moon is in Libra at a Scorpio degree in the 3rd house. So it's about transformations in how you communicate in relationships. And it's like getting it all out there because Libra is very balanced, but the Scorpio degree is like, hey, we need some transparency in the relationship department. It's also in conjunction to Pluto. So it means you're going to have conversations with partners, Libra, about changes and transformations in your relationship status. And perhaps talking about moving for relationships, changing your home, Moon Pluto themes, and perhaps even talking about like documents, things that could be connected to documents or things that are connected to education and how that kind of connects to your relationship. If you look at some of the aspects with your moon by sign, it squares your sun and Venus. So there's a lot of like, well, I need to have conversations with partners because you know how it's going to be impacting from Capricorn 6th house whole sign, where I'm working, what my schedule is like, where my priorities are, what I'm getting done. So the good news is that I think Leo risings actually have some pretty awesome transits for like the next 2 weeks. Thinking about and I'm going to talk about this on the Sunday astro weather, like the triple conjunction that's heating up in Capricorn, where you're going to see the Sun, Mars, and Venus all coming into conjunction in Capricorn. Now, technically that's in your 5th house, so it's more about getting creative with work, doing things that are going to be more personal, but also things that are kind of heating up with your love life. Maybe feels a little uncomfortable because it's squaring your moon Pluto. So anytime you're seeing these squares or even oppositions to your moon, which you're experiencing like with Jupiter square, it's kind of pushing you to have some of these uncomfortable conversations about what is going to change in a relationship. She said, I'm in Ireland, and I think getting into college here might be the way to get to Ireland. I mean, Saturn going into your 9th house whole sign, with Neptune going into your 9th house whole sign, pretty good indication that that's giving you the opportunity, or it's opening the door to possibly travel and, get education and things like that, and going to like a foreign place. Jupiter is also about education to some extent, and it's in your 12th house this year, whole sign. And you will see like the second half of next year, Jupiter in Leo is going to start coming into a trine with Saturn in Aries. So even if it's not something that's taking place until later in the year next year, most likely you're going to find that that's when things are like actually going to kind of start to stick, right? Anyway, you were asking about specifically the new moon opposing your sun, okay? So when we look at that, I think you maybe meant the full moon. I'm just assuming. But the full moon is going to be opposing your sun. So you've got the sun in Capricorn, so it's around your solar return, and then the moon is opposing. So basically you're having a full moon on your birthday, right? So when you have a full moon on your birthday, go back, look at the last couple of years if you have like astro, like transit calendars, or if you can look at your software. Look at the last time you had a birthday that was around a new moon. It had to be within like 2 or 3 degrees where there was a new moon in Capricorn. That was a birthday or a solar return where you were planting new seeds. So this time around, it represents some things coming to fruition this year, some major changes. Positive, I think it's going to be a big year. And full moons in Cancer in their home sign, it's in your 11th house technically, so it's about big goals that are kind of coming to fruition with your home life, your friends, your community, and it's going to be big all year. I think it's also interesting that it's coming into a square with your natal Pluto and moon. So if you look at this, you have your north node and you have your south node. The full moon is squaring the nodes right off the bat and opposing your sun. So it's creating a grand cardinal cross in your chart. And it's basically saying you have to really put more emphasis into your goals regarding community this year, and all of that opposition that's going to be kind of happening to your 5th house is going to represent, well, I got to be where the people are. I got to find people who I can create and kind of collaborate with. Yeah, it's uncomfortable, she said. Uncomfortable conversations, and it's normal. I should be used to it by now. Well, I mean, I think that, next year, as you have Saturn go into Aries, it's going to get all the way up to, I think, about 15 degrees. So not only are you going to have Saturn hit your south node, but you're also going to have Saturn that's going to start opposing Pluto, which is going to bring up more at a 16, like uncomfortable conversations about home and also relationships, Libra. And then it will oppose your moon. So I think just intuitively, like going at this from the direction of being like, okay, he doesn't want to get married yet. That's not something we need to push. Let's figure that out. You have time because there's going to be eclipses that are going to be taking place in your 7th house. Obviously, the North Node's going to be moving through there, especially fully in the summer when it's in Aquarius. You're going to have eclipses that are going to be going on there in February that's going to square Uranus on your midheaven. And that means that even if you're not leaning in the direction of like getting married, there still is a sense of being like, okay, what are we doing? And like, what are you doing to help kind of integrate me into your life if I end up coming there? So it's going to be more about like the living situation if you guys were going to kind of talk about doing that. And you can readdress, you know, that stuff when you get into like the Mercury and the Venus retrograde in the fall this year, in October and November. But going the direction of trying to make it work school-wise is probably pretty smart, because, you know, Saturn is going to be coming into a trine with your Mars. So it means that if you're committing to higher education, it may actually help you change and transform where you're living. Mars rules your fourth, through going back and returning to a foreign land, right? There's no guarantee. I mean, you might want to like consider looking at your relocated chart or your astrocartography, obviously in Ireland, but it makes sense. Jupiter's going to be, you know, in your 12th house in this next year too. It will eventually cross your ascendant, but I think that you're really dealing with some heavy hitters. Watching Saturn come into conjunction with your South Node ruled by Mars, so it's almost saying like there has to be some sense of more transparency and vulnerability in intimate relationships, and also like finances. It's technically in your 8th. And it's going to trine, you know, Mars, and it means that you guys have to have these conversations so you feel a little bit more secure if you're going to make the move. Equally, you're going to have Saturn that's going to oppose your Pluto, so that is going to be bringing up some tension in traveling, going back and forth, and Saturn will be squaring your Venus, which is in Capricorn, and your Sun, and that's a big transit because the Sun rules your chart. So there's a lot of things that are kind of going on with your Sun right now. I would say maybe going in the direction of focusing on, you know, trying to go the school route, and then you could down the road, you will probably find that you're going to be having conversations that are very relationship oriented as you're getting closer to the full moon that's going to be in your 5th house. So that's going to be like at the end of June. Look at that. You're going to have a full moon right on your Venus squaring Saturn. So then the conversations about relationships get kicked up again. And then you will have another full moon that's tied to your 7th house, and that's going to be at the end of July 2026. And that won't be an eclipse, but this is the full moon that's completing the cycle of what was the full moon, the solar eclipse that's coming in mid February of this year. So putting it all together, I kind of feel like you can kind of kick the can down the road a little bit with having more serious conversations in relationships, but it's very obvious to me that you're going to get to the end of the summer and then it's going to be like, okay, you know, what are we going to do? What are we going to be doing? And I'm not as worried about some of the Saturn transits. I mean, yeah, Saturn in opposition to Pluto, I mean, it's at a Cancer degree, so I'm just going to have to move, but Saturn will be trining your Mars in the process. It will be trining your ascendant. In the summer, it will trine also Jupiter. And it's sextiling your 7th house. It's Saturn squaring Venus and your Sun that I think is going to be a little bit more difficult personally. And I don't know if that's going to be more difficult financially, or if that's going to be about you kind of being like, all right, I'm going to school and getting out of my usual routines and habits and like trying to find a way to make it work so I can go to school. And also like the financial side of it. So there can be a sense of you having to talk to him a little bit about that. If you're going to school full time, you know, are you going to be working? Are you going to have some support with him? Are you guys doing something together? Because Saturn's still going to be kind of hanging out in your 8th house until about July. So dealing with spending, expenses, debt, all of that stuff definitely kind of comes to mind. 4 years ago, it's how I got to Ireland. Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing to kind of consider is that there may be some pretty dramatic changes happening in your relationships. You may not see it right off the bat, but this solar eclipse that's coming up in mid-February on your descendant is basically laying the groundwork for where you're going in the future of relationships. So the positive is that it's planting new seeds, right? So it means that you guys can be like, okay, we're going to be doing this together. The challenge is that you have the Sun, which rules you in the 7th house, which can imply you're like, yeah, I want to be together, let's make it work. But it's opposing Saturn on your ascendant. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of back and forth as much over the summer. I think that if you're planning on like moving there might be longer periods of time where you guys aren't seeing each other before you finally do, you know, get accepted in the program and then end up kind of moving there. And I also think that with this squaring Uranus, it means that, you really want to push for some kind of change in regards to either your career or your relationship status. And that'll unfold about 6 to 18 months. It won't be all at one time. You'll also see whether or not he's going to start kind of like shaping up and getting with the program, or if he's going to do the Aquarius descendant thing, which is just kind of like, I still need my freedom. I still kind of need my space, something like that. And then that'll take, like I said, about 6 to 18 months for it to fully, kind of transform. Summertime, a little different. You'll see those eclipses that are going to come through your ascendant, which I think is great for you for travel and for school, especially because it's trining Saturn. So maybe you're more free to travel in August, but it still is opposing your descendant, and that's where the North Node is. So things kind of shift a little bit, and like there's going to be this sense of you kind of going, well, if he doesn't want to do it, then I'm prioritizing what I want to do, and like I'm not putting all my eggs in that basket. And it doesn't mean you have to leave the relationship. You're just really reevaluating whether or not, he's going to be the gateway to kind of getting there. And if it's not, then you're going to be more focused on spiritual studies, more focused on studying, more focused on kind of getting there. And I definitely feel like the astrology does start to kind of ease up a little bit, especially for Leo placements once we're getting to about the end of July going into August, right? So, and it's going to sextile your moon and your Pluto too. So all that stuff's going to get easier and easier. But you have to understand the North Node in the 7th house. Other partners can come in even if you're not looking for it. It can also be a time where, you're like, okay, I really want partnership, and Saturn is the ruler. So it does mean that you would have to travel or go to school somewhere else to connect with him. But it also does highlight Saturn in the 9th can be about commitments, ceremonies, graduations, weddings. And you'll continue to see eclipses that are going to be moving through your descendant for the next several years. They're going to become even more prominent as Pluto's kind of getting closer there. So there may be a change that you might see with him, that he's going to be a little bit more open. But yeah, I think the school route is definitely going to be first. And go look back on, like I said, when you had your new moon in Capricorn birthday. It's got to be sometime over like the last 5 or 6 years. So now you're seeing whatever you kind of set in motion, it's coming to fruition. So if that's when you first started going to Ireland or doing that stuff, it's also connected to the triple conjunction with Capricorn. Something started in 2021, 2022, and like now it's building into a fruition phase. It's supposed to be about you kind of getting the show on the road and figuring out what you do want to do for work. So hopefully that's kind of helpful in giving you some insight on that. All right, so we've got Winky, Rosie, and Coco. And for those of us who are joining us, is this a personal reading or a general forecast? Now, these are personal readings. Friday nights we do personal readings. But if you guys do want a general forecast, go and check out the horoscopes for January. I go through all the transits. And we're going to talk about the very rare and unusual double Kazemi that's coming up this week. The astrology in this next week is wild. So especially for Capricorn placements, I think it's going to be really good for you guys. All right, so let's go and talk to Winky. Here we go. Cancer rising, sun in Pisces, moon in Virgo. What's up, Winky? See if I can find you. Let's see. There we go. Happy New Year. All right, so anything I need to know about my moon and Saturn graduation? That was long, but I persevered, and I am here besides being in an LDR at the moment, but everything is going well. Any insights, please? Well, that's quite a big graduation, finally having Saturn kind of leaving that conjunction to your sun. I assume that's what you're kind of talking about. And also the fact that it's no longer in opposition to all of your kind of Virgo placements. So now you're getting ready to see Saturn leave signs. It's going to be going into Aries with Neptune in February. You're still having some South Node transits though, so I think it might kind of still mirror some of the things that you've been experiencing since you've had some of those Saturn oppositions in recent years. And so I would not discredit some of that. You have to kind of watch that. So this is going to be down here, right here. Over the next couple of months, you're going to see that the South Node is going to hit your Jupiter, which is going to influence and impact everything connecting to your career. And then you're going to have the South Node hit your moon, which is your chart ruler. But in theory, because you were born with Jupiter and the moon, so you and your 10th house lord conjunct, it means that you have like a great deal of skill in communications at work. Like there's a sense of being really focused on details, like being able to kind of get the point across, all that stuff. So the Saturn transit leaving your sun, usually the final pass represents like something that is solidifying. And I think about as a Cancer rising, you know, all of this Capricorn stuff that's going on in the 7th house where you talk about the long distance relationship, it's all being ruled by Saturn. So it can mean that you're getting more serious, right? Committed, you know, you're maturing through some change in a relationship and you're feeling like it's like destined or it's something that's going to like positively impact your status out in the world. Sun Saturn transits can be about dealing with bosses, dealing with like dad related issues or like elders. And it can also mean that there's like a serious relationship with like a man that can kind of come into your life. So that can be part of the finale of Saturn leaving that conjunction with your sun. Now, what I do like is that you are going to see as the North Node is swinging through the now earlier degrees of Pisces, it's coming into conjunction with your Venus and it's within range now. It's within 7 degrees. So that can also be a time where there is this really like this focus on what feels like destined, fated relationships. And it's in the 9th house. So it can be a relationship with somebody at a distance. So there is going to be this emphasis on relationship growth and like, you know, maybe growing through communication and like, you know, discussing visiting or, you know, maybe at some point potentially moving. And that seems to be like quite the focus until the North Node leaves the conjunction with Venus, which isn't going to be until like June going into July. What's interesting is this is happening at the same time that the South Node is hitting your Jupiter and hitting your moon. So there is going to be communication changes. You might be more willing to travel more frequently. You might feel like communication is more intuitive. It's less kind of like Virgo-like where it's nitty, like kind of like nitpicky. And the South Node hitting your moon will also prompt either changes with your family or potentially moving or changes with vehicles. And that's going to be kind of coming up for you in May. So with the South Node hitting your moon, there can be some anxiety out of like getting out of, you know, practical kind of day-to-day or work-related things, or maybe feeling like you have to be super focused on work or super focused on family, and your mind is going to be more on a relationship, and it's also going to be on potentially traveling. So having some North Node and South Node kind of activations at the same time is quite interesting because it means that you're kind of at like a crossroads in your life where you have to decide what direction you're going to go in. And I would say, you know, North Node Venus, especially in Pisces, is very much kind of leading with your heart. Saturn and Neptune will also go through your 10th house, and Saturn is going to square your North and South Node at a 6. So that's also saying there's going to be some pretty distant, significant changes going on with like, you know, your authority or your career or your relationships, you know, with your job that will directly impact who you are versus your relationships as well. So pretty much February through April, you know, I mean, I've seen a lot of Cancer and Cancer risings that are either really moving up in their career or they're launching businesses or taking on management positions. I've also seen other Cancer risings that are becoming more assertive and they're being more direct with partners because it squares the 7th house, you know, basically telling them, hey, this is what I want. Are we doing this or not? So you may see a little bit of that start to kind of pop off, especially I would say February through about April. But having gone through Saturn on your sun, I mean, I think you're going to be, you know, you're solid. It's in a Taurus degree. So it's about having more security, feeling more financially secure at your job, feeling more stable. And Neptune's out of the way as well. Nevertheless, you know, Saturn and Neptune are going to be squaring your ascendant and your descendant. And you're going to start feeling that pretty strongly here once they both go into Aries. And so that's going to be pretty much happening from January and February. And it's been my experience personally, having had Saturn and Neptune on my angles, you know, squaring my midheaven, opposing my ascendant, squaring my IC. Saturn's been like delays, and then Neptune has been like, am I seeing this clearly? So I wouldn't recommend making any big or dramatic career changes during that February through April period, or any big decisions about relationships either. Wait until you start to see the square with your North and your South Node, which looks like that's going to be happening kind of like March, April. And then it looks like the emphasis is going to be on your career. And your 10th house for you is actually your partner's home. So it might mean that they're going through home changes, they're considering moving, they're dealing with family related, dramas. And that's also going to play a role ultimately in, what's going to happen with your guys' like relationships, But yeah, I think for the most part, Saturn and Neptune leaving your sun is really bringing you clear communication. And I think now with maybe the South Node hitting your Jupiter and your Moon, you feel like more confident in the process. And all of this is going to be with the conjunction on your sun that's still happening. It's sextiling Uranus. So it also helps you get on better with people at work or with groups of people. It helps you really focus on transforming your financial goals. And it's still a loose trine to Jupiter in your first house. So you should feel a lot more confident with like what's kind of going on with you at work. Thank you. I'm getting a raise that could happen in the springtime. Yeah. So watch from February through about April. What I will tell you is that even though it may bring more money, especially with like the South Node hitting your Jupiter and your Moon, I mean, I could see that happening. It's going to come with a lot more responsibility. So you'll get a raise, but there's going to be more expectations and more responsibility. You're going to have to kind of manage more in the process. So I think you can do it. But you're going to notice with Saturn hitting your Mercury, it's about not being afraid to speak out, and being kind of daring and being a little bit more direct. And your Mercury is retrograde, so you're a deep thinker, obviously, but with natal Mercury square Uranus and Neptune in the North or South Node, you don't always know how to assert yourself in relationships, maybe, or you're afraid of maybe kind of ruffling people's feathers at work. And I feel like this is about really stepping up and being like, this is what it needs to happen, and being a little bit more forward and being a little bit more assertive. Not being like mean, but it's about being assertive and being like, this is what we got to do, and kind of like working with groups of people and kind of like leading them in some way. So, or talking about your goals or talking about your dreams, and that will somehow kind of like incentivize people, right? Yeah, it's hard when you have like a lot, even though you're a Pisces, you have like a really strong like Libra signature, because you have all those planets in your 7th house and your North Node is there as well. So it's about, diplomacy, working together, being a part of a group. But I think that you're going to start telling your partner, like, this is where I see my life going. And you're going to be like, is he going to get with the program? So good on you for being able to get that raise. I mean, especially at a Taurus degree, it is supposed to materialize as getting more financially. And like, that's like the validation for like a job well done. And then Jupiter's going to come into your 2nd house too. A lot of Cancer risings are going to really see quite a noticeable shift in their finances over the summer this next year. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, I've got Rosie and I've got Coco. Rosie, you have a question for me. I don't know if I saw your question. What's up, Miss Crossroads? What's going on? Thank you for the 5 hours. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, let me go back up here. Let's see if I can find your question. Rosie. I have a fixed question. Add me to the queue. You want to know about that fixed star? Is that what you're asking about? Let's see. I know that degree is what, in Gemini? Okay, I have 5 or more females throughout my life who all have that fixed star conjunct the moon. Okay, I know it's in Gemini. Let's see. So it's technically in the constellation of Taurus, but it's right around 9 to 10 degrees of Gemini. And they all have been tough relationships lessons. What's the purpose? Okay, well, let's see. This is your info, right? The March 15th, 84. And that's where your North Node is, too. Technically, that's in the whole sign 6th, my dear. So that can be about fighting, feeling like there's pushback or there's some kind of like enemies or like uphill battles you have to kind of deal with. Yes. Oddball question, but it's constantly be there. Well, part of it's also the North Node. So, and it's in opposition to Uranus. So having that fixed star there is going to trigger that. And it squares Venus too. So that could be part of it, that you're dealing with women. But when you have like moon conjunct that, I know you don't, you have your north node conjunct that. But when you have moon conjunct that, let's see, a splendid opulent nature, favorable for danger of violent death, at the same time Mars and Saturn. Okay, so if there's oppositions, it can be challenging. So here's my thought. You know, the North Node synastry talks about people who come in that are here to help you learn about or evolve your purpose, right? It can be foreign or it can be something that's going to kind of help push you along. So if we look at your natal chart, having the North Node in Gemini, which is technically in your whole sign 6, which I think is lending more energy to being like, yeah, I've got people who, you know, are causing me problems or issues, or it can cause health issues, it can cause mental health issues with the moon conjunct that fixed star in the North Node. And if you look, the ruler of this is Mercury, and it's sextiles, and Saturn and Neptune are coming into conjunction with Mercury, which is why possibly you're going, well, what's the purpose? What's the theme? What's the karma, right? And like, why is there conflict? And why does it make me feel like it's difficult to communicate, or like they're kind of lashing out, or there is this kind of like combative, right? Mercury and Aries kind of communication that I end up having with some of these people. She says, what can I do to work, better relate, because they've been harsh? Well, and also, as Saturn and Neptune are going over your Mercury, it's going to activate your North Node. So it means that when it comes to communication, Gemini, with people at work, 6th house, and their beliefs, 9, or anything that deals with sales or marketing, you're going to have people that are going to be kind of like combative. And even Mercury's in your whole sign 4th, which deals with home and property. The problem is that your Mercury is very highlighted with squares to Neptune, so you'll have a tendency to be like, okay, there is a side of you that does want to respond and does want to stand up for yourself, but like also you're kind of more like the peacekeeper, having Neptune and Jupiter on your ascendant. Probably as Saturn is coming into conjunction with Mercury over like the next couple of months with Neptune, there's a sense of you going like, saying something doesn't mean that I'm being aggressive, it's creating a boundary, and really like not also taking work home, because Saturn creates that boundary, Mercury rules your work, and it's also going to be about what you're doing, how you're communicating, phone calls, any interactions. Like it might mean that you feel like you're not wanting to work from home, or you're needing to kind of cleanse your space, or even your cell phone, which is kind of weird. And she says, this has been since childhood with aunts, teachers, and authority figures. Well, aunts, uncles, cousins, Mercury, right? Also teachers, or, you know, communications with teachers, very Mercury square Jupiter. And then if we look at your North Node, where you have that conjunction with their moon, it's in a sign that deals with communication and learning. And it's almost like, in a way, makes you feel like there is a sense of you needing to be more particular or cautious, like, or maybe you feel like you're kind of editing yourself when you're communicating with some of these people, because it's in the whole sign 6th. And it does oppose Uranus. So when you think about all these people's moons, your Uranus opposes their moon, which means they feel like emotionally kind of like they don't know what they're going to get from you, or that there is some emotional friction, because oppositions to the moon they don't relate. There isn't a lot of harmony emotionally, whether it's women, right, the moon, or family. And then by sign, it also squares Venus in Pisces. So I feel like sometimes there is a tendency for other people to kind of lash out a little bit with that conjunction on your North Node, and there's a side of you that wants to pull back, and then now there's like a side of you that's like, okay, let me learn Saturn, Neptune, what is the spiritual meaning, what is the karmic connection here, what do I need to do to kind of like clear the decks, and also tying it back to how it's influenced and impacted whether or not you feel like you can ask questions, right? Whether or not you feel like you can converse with people and like really tell them what's on your mind. And it's interesting that it's coming up now, as it's going to conjunct Mercury and square your Neptune. So it's about you becoming less passive and more assertive. And also, I think a lot of it's tone. Like I have noticed people who have Mercury Neptune squares, they may not be aware of how they sound when they're talking, right? Sometimes that could be you, or how things are coming across. Even if it's not intentional, it could be the tone and people are misunderstanding, or vice versa. You could be very sensitive to the tone of people and be taking that personally, and there can be a sense of you being like, oh, that doesn't feel good, you know, or like that's aggressive. And a lot of it's just like relational dynamics that I feel like are really, really uncomfortable with some of the moon stuff. Probably what I would say to you is that over the next couple of years, as Uranus is coming into conjunction with that degree, where it's hitting their moon and it's hitting your North Node, You may find that you're kind of breaking free from some of these, you know, communication kind of limits or some issues or hangups that you're having with being able to kind of connect with some of these people. And the 6th house is service. So I think you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be, you know, possibly over the next year being a little bratty. So I don't know what you do for real estate in general, but people are going to be like, well, what are the neighbors like? Or, you know, what's going on with the neighborhood? Or, you know, what's going on with this person's dog? Or they're going to be like asking a lot of questions, and you're going to have to just know the answers and be direct. No, I thought you said real estate earlier. Hold on, what did you say? You said, so what are you doing? I don't know. Oh, you work in a lab. Okay, for some reason I thought I said real estate. So research could be Gemini. It could also be about reports. It could be anything connecting to like data and information and things that you're importing. And maybe I would just say, just to be on the safe side, you know, with Saturn, Neptune hitting your Mercury, this is going to make you realize that there is a need to not be moving too quickly with information or data, or how you're importing things or exporting things, and like having a lot, I think, a much more critical eye for information, and making sure that you're, you know, kind of looking over everything before you're, you know, sending it to people who you're working with. Also, Saturn hitting your Mercury is going to make you possibly start thinking about like some kind of education. It doesn't mean that it has to be job related. It could be, but it can mean that you're doing some kind of self-learning or studying, especially from home. And that there is going to be a huge emphasis on your communication style with siblings, aunts, uncles, or cousins. So usually Aries is a more masculine energy, so it can be like a relationship that you have with like a male family member, and whether or not you're feeling like you can communicate with them, but that's going to be one lesson. And then when you start seeing Saturn sextiling your North Node, then it's going to be more about people at work. But hopefully that's helpful. I know that I have something here that says, when there's moon conjunctions going on with this degree or the North Node, that there is like chronic issues that can happen with the family, and that there can be combativeness, there could be losses in relationships, serious illnesses that affects them and their family. So you want to really kind of keep an eye on that as Saturn and Neptune is starting to conjunct Mercury and it's sextiling, because you might start to see some of that stuff kind of come up. Not for you, but I think it would be more family related. Violence and harshness, yeah. Well, and then the 1 degree of Aries is very much the same. You know, even having Mars ruling your 4th house makes family relationships pretty difficult, and you have Mars in opposition to Chiron, so that's also saying that there's some issues that go back to childhood and kind of feeling like there was some conflict or some group dynamics that didn't feel good. And you have a really strong Pisces signature with Pisces here, planets in your 12th house, Neptune on the ascendant, and like you're really sensitive. And I feel like what's happening over the next couple of months is you creating better boundaries when it comes to your home and your family relationships, and like who you're actually letting into your space. And it may even materialize as being like, there are some people that I'm just not going to communicate with, or I feel like I have to cut off, right? So hopefully that gives you a little bit of insight on that. That was a cool question. Thank you for that. All right, we've got Coco, and then after Coco, we're going to move to the rest of my list. I just thought it was weird when I look back at these people cropping up every 3 years and cutting me off. You're welcome. All right, so let's take a look at Coco. What's up, my dear? I got you here, Sag, Sun, Capricorn, Moon, Pisces rising. Let's take a look here. Let's see what Coco has to say. There she is. Happy Muggle New Year. Looking for general guidance to start the year off with. I'm focused on organizing, saving money, and possibly getting back into social media as creative. Anything I should be aware of or warnings? Well, I think that Pisces risings, if you have managed to survive what was November going into December, things get a whole lot easier, right? So what I would really focus on if I were you, because you are going to see like this gangbusters of planets for the next week or two moving through Capricorn, you're going to see this huge emphasis on all these planets kind of leaving your 10th house of career and then going into your 11th house. Now, this is important because Mars, the Sun, and Venus are all going to be cazimi. So there's like a triple conjunction in your 11th house, all ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is in your ascendant sign still. So it basically means you are the captain of your own goals. And the 11th house is your audience, okay? So it can mean getting back on social media, sharing stuff with groups of people. It can mean getting more socially active. You could be starting groups, joining groups. It can also be a time where you're getting really passionate and very serious about making money, because Mars rules your resources and Libra is others. And something that's kind of tied to aligning yourself with a group, or aligning yourself with a belief system, or maybe this is going to be some professional networking. You'll see some opportunities also to be like promoting what you're doing in groups and stuff online. And collaborations are really great with some of those sextiles that you're going to start seeing this kind of mid through the second half of January to Saturn in your first house. So it's about surrounding yourself with people, presenting to people, collaborating with people, and it's really going to start to kind of pick up momentum mid-month. And then you're going to start seeing planets that are going to go into your 12th house, and you're going to start to kind of like lose that energy. So it's not going to be as productive once you get to, I would say, like the second half of February. You're going to have a lot of planets moving through your 12th house, so it's going to be more about rest and recuperation. You'll have an eclipse there, which is going to be a lot of the same thing. And then a Mercury retrograde that's going to be in the same sign as your ascendant. Yeah, I've heard for Pisces risings that, November and December was really difficult. And I've heard the same thing for Sagittarius's. All the mutables had a bit of a roundabout, kind of month. But that energy is now subsiding. And I would really make the most of like the next 4 to 6 weeks by really trying to put yourself out there and networking with other people. You will start to get your groove back when planets are coming into, your ascendant. But I don't think that's really going to start to kind of be as visible until you're getting into like the end of March, when the Sun and Mars and Saturn are all moving through your first house, and then you're feeling like you can kind of take some action. So rather than waiting until the end of March to get the show on the road, I would love to see you spending the next 4 to 6 weeks networking with people, putting stuff out there. You could probably do some stuff on social media where you could be doing some like affiliate stuff if you want, or you can be getting paid if you want to get affiliated with certain brands. And this is also going to be a time where, any collaborations that you can do with other people, I think are going to go very, very well. All this is also opposing Jupiter, which is your chart ruler in the 5th. So my hot take on this is that there's ways for you to be creative, for you to kind of be center stage, or be, the star, or be putting stuff together that's going to really catch the eye and the attention of other people who are going to go, oh, I want that, or I want to work with her, or I want to see what she's doing. So you really have quite an audience that you can kind of draw upon, and you'll have even more people who might be in similar kind of, types of work that you're doing, or they're going to have similar backgrounds. Or, this is a time for, if I were a Pisces rising, I would be trying to find people who are in the industry that I'm wanting to break into. That's what I would be doing. I would be going to networking events. I would be trying to collaborate with people. I would be doing anything and everything to get in with people who are going to be doing what I'm doing, because they're going to inspire you to feel like, okay, this is what's meant to be, and I'm just, needing to find my tribe. And it's also going to help you kind of get some stuff off the ground before you kind of go into hibernation mode a little bit as you're getting into late February into March. And then it's going to kind of kick back up once you come out of that in late April. So wishes, goals, professional networking, surrounding yourself by people who are Capricorn-like. You're playing with home field advantage. Venus in Capricorn, you're going to have planets that are going to be on your moon. You're going to have planets that are kind of moving through your Saturn. So it might be older individuals. It might be also people of a specific background, or people of a specific, kind of like occupation, or kind of like interest groups. And Saturn being the ruler also means that it's people who are going to be looking at what? Saturn is in Pisces. What you are shooting, what you are filming. It also might deal with lighting, or anything kind of connected to images or film. So I love the idea of you, sharing some of your visions or things that you're working on with your audience, and like really polishing up some stuff that might be kind of connected to your social media, or potentially even your brand. So yeah, I've talked to a lot of, I have a lot of friends who were born in 89. Obviously we're the same age, but 89 and 90 and everybody's like, what is going on? This energy is insane. Well, we all have planets in Capricorn. So, now we're starting to kind of really feel like there is this second wind. I think that's kind of kicking in. That's really helping us think and be a little bit more business minded. My advice is use it while you got it, because in this next year, when Saturn goes into Aries, it's going to start squaring all that Capricorn. So the positive is that those of you guys born in 89, you are going to have the higher vantage, because, Saturn is going to be a lot stronger in Capricorn than it is going to be in Aries. And I think that a lot of the people who have Capricorn placements, or at least the outer planets, are going to be a lot more patient. They're going to be a lot more entrepreneurial. They're going to be a lot more, I think, experienced. And they're not just going to jump at some of the opportunities that are going to come when Saturn and Neptune are in Aries. They're going to be like, I don't know if that's really what I want to do. In your case, it's going to be about who you're aligning yourself with business-wise or socially. And it's also going to be about whether or not you're going to try to jump into some things that, might sound good, but they may not necessarily make money. And so if you're feeling like there's some reluctance, or you're not really ready to make some big leaps yet, focus more on building community, because that community building is what's going to sustain you as you go through the Saturn squares, right? Oh, it'll be so good also is just having Saturn and Neptune off of your ascendant and no longer having it square Mercury. It's like your chart really starts to kind of open up next year, and the pressure is going to start to be released. And then you're also preparing to go into your nodal return. So, when that happened last, you were what, 17, 18, 19? So you had to kind of, probably, take some time to kind of be alone and reflect before everything kind of started up, right? Saturn and Uranus rule your north node. So you have to make an end of some things. You have to conclude some things, likely work stuff. It's at an 18. And then all of a sudden new goals came online and like new people showed up. You're seeing a similar theme that's kind of happening right now. Hopefully that's helpful for you. All right, so those were my level 4 people. Was there anybody else? I didn't know if Tanya, if you wanted to get in there, just let me know. We've got Mr. Powers, Alyssa, and Lakshmi. What's up, openings? Hello. Cap Rising, same issue, cut them off. We already finished taking readings for the evening. I was just seeing if the level 4 members wanted to get in. We did last call because we got a lot of people, but we'll be back next week with tarot. Usually we have room for people, but there's a lot of people tonight. So we're gonna take Matt and then Alyssa and then Lakshmi. What's up, Mr. Powers? Let me pull up your chart here. And you were one of the first ones to jump in there. No, let's see. Matt. I know I have you in here somewhere. And your birthday's coming up too, dude. Pretty soon. Let's see what Matt had to say. So far, so good with the observations in 2nd grade. My next 2 observations will be in January, but there'll be surprises. What day should I be looking for? And how do you see the next semester going overall? Thanks. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Honestly, you said it's going to be over the next month, or was it 2 months? They're going to be over, will be in January. My dude, what a great time to have your observations. I need to pull up a calendar here really quick so I can see. Let me take a look here. I gotta look at a calendar. So obviously you're going to be in school Monday through Friday. So, okay, cool. I can look at this at the same time as I'm talking to you guys. Wow, fancy. All right. I'm going to go more off of the transits, and if it correlates with like a Monday through Friday, that's going to be something that's going to kind of ding. But the reason why I say it's great that it's happening in January is because you happen to be an Aries rising, okay? So Saturn is not in your sign yet. It's not going to be there until February, where it's possible Saturn crossing your ascendant, you're kind of feeling a little bit more heat or pressure from career-related matters or potentially, superiors. I do think that with Neptune coming into Aries, so that's going to be happening again right at the end of January, this can also mean that it's about becoming aware of your blind spots and also where, you're not always kind of aware of things or aware of how you're kind of presenting yourself. So certainly things are heating up between now and mid-February, where Saturn and Neptune are going to be meeting in Aries. technically in your 12th house. So I do see this as people kind of keeping an eye on you or individuals watching you or whatever. And that's going to continue on basically until April. The positive is that I think for some Aries and Aries risings, you're going to see that it's going to be about, you know, some observations going on at work and then being like, okay, you're good. And then you're like, okay, cool. I'm self-governing now. Like now I can do what I need to do and not feel like I have the pressure of other people. Now in the background, Saturn is also conjunct the transiting North Node. Look at that. So that would also be a time where somebody professionally, 10, is observing you and kind of like watching you. And the 10th house is, the 12th house is something that we don't know when it's coming. So it's kind of like all over your chart. Anyway, Mars is going through your 10th house. It's a time for visibility, for maturity, for discipline. It's a time really where you're shining at work. I would hope that this is happening around the time that you're having some of the conjunctions with either the Sun or Mars and Venus. So I think you may have somebody pop in. Let's see. So the 6th is Tuesday, because you're going to see the moon that's going to be trining Mercury, the Sun, and it's also going to start coming into an opposition with Saturn. Another day that this could be happening would be the 7th. So the 6th and the 7th would be good days to be observed, especially because Venus and Mars are going to meet. So it means that another person is going to be giving you high, like kind of recognition or like feedback, good feedback for like the job that you're doing. The days that I'm not so crazy about would be when the moon is starting to come into a square with Mercury and Mars and the Sun and Venus. So this is going to be January the 10th. You got lucky. It's going to be on a Saturday and a Sunday. So you're going to kind of narrowly escape that. Then you're going to see the moon in Scorpio on the 12th, which is a Monday, is activating Mars and Mercury. Sextiling Saturn, that's good. Trining Uranus, that's good. So I'm okay with it. Not crazy about the moon in Scorpio, but the aspects that it's making are nice. So the 12th would be fine. We're going to see then the moon is going to square the North and the South Node, which is about education. So there can be an unexpected check-in that can be happening for you on the 13th. Doesn't look like the end of the world. I mean, it does make me feel like this is going to be a day that I would make sure that you're on time getting to work, or that you're not getting bogged down with something going on with your home and your family. Like, make sure that you go to work on the 13th. That's a Tuesday. Then you're going to have on the 16th, which is a Friday, the moon's going to go into Capricorn. It is coming into a conjunction with Mercury and Mars, and it's also opposing Jupiter. So it can feel very overwhelming and sudden if somebody decides to pop in on the 16th. Then we've got that being a weekend. That's going to take us to the 19th, which is going to be Martin Luther King. So I don't know if you're going to be at work. But with Venus on your Sun, you should get good results. With Mercury conjunct the moon, you should have good feedback. So if you do if you do have school on the 19th, that's an okay day. The days that I'm not so crazy about is probably going to be when Mercury is conjunct Pluto, because you can feel a little bit more critical of yourself, and other people can be really kind of critiquing you a little bit. Pluto's there too. So that's going to be Wednesday the 21st. That's really the only day I'm not crazy about, to be honest with you. But still, Mars is sextile Saturn, and the moon's conjunct Saturn. So it may mean that if they come in before the 21st, you're getting your feedback. Pluto and Mercury on your Sun is definitely feedback coming from a group, but I think some of the other transits offset that. And then you're going to have Moon conjunct Saturn, which can also represent there being some feedback coming from work. That could be around the 22nd of January. And then the last day of January is what, the 23rd? I mean, at least in terms of the weekday. So I bet you dollars to donuts, the days that I gave you will probably be at least one of the times that they're going to come in. The only day that I'm not crazy about is like when the Sun is conjunct Pluto and Mercury. So that's the 22nd, which is a Thursday. The rest of the dates, believe it or not, are actually pretty decent in your chart. So let me see. Are you talking to me? 2 in the next month. Okay, so in January though, right? Not in February? Last day of January is the 30th. Okay, hold on. I didn't see all the dates on my calendar, so let me move forward. So then, is it there? Oh, it is 30th. Okay, so hold on. So I'm not, so make a note, not crazy about the 22nd. Then we've got the 26th. Okay, so the moon's going to square that. Saturn's at 28. Mars and Pluto are on your sun. So I'm not crazy about the 26th because of the moon square. And then I'd like to see Mars off of your sun. So, you know, the 28th, the sun trines the moon. So that's fine. Mars is off of your sun, that's fine. So really the day before that or so is kind of tricky. And then you're gonna have the 30th is gonna be the moon trine Saturn. And then Saturn has not gone into Aries yet. So, I mean, honestly, if you had to have a month where you were gonna have some kind of evaluation, I would rather you have had it in January than have it in February. Personally, I think it's a much better month. So there's very few days that kind of concern me. It's possible that, you know, Saturn and Neptune go into Aries and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, you know, like we trust what he's doing. We're going to kind of let him do his thing. And then you're going to see that Saturn is going to come onto your ascendant, where I think it's going to be more health related. It's also going to be about being punctual, being on time, making sure that you're reiterating, you know, maybe with your students when things are being turned in, when things are being completed, things like that. She said, he said, I can't control when they do, but they told me January, so hopefully they don't change their mind. No, January is the month you want them there. I want to see you get all the recognition when Mars is exalted in your 10th house, and that's basically going to be all month long. No, don't worry about Saturn. Be more aware of what happens when Saturn and Mars are on your ascendant, because that looks to me like this is probably going to be more so about, like, I mean, honestly, your relationship to yourself. You'll see this in April, you know, Mercury on the ascendant, Saturn on the ascendant, Mars on the ascendant. That can mean that you're just need to be more mindful of your communication and your speech patterns. But while that's happening, it's going to trine Pluto and also Jupiter. So it's about you being like, okay, I have more authority. I am, you know, now I am kind of being a little bit more of an authority figure. There is a sense of really feeling a great deal of like pride or responsibility. You just, you know, be mindful of Aries things, cuts, burns, bruises, like that kind of stuff, hitting your head. Certainly Mars, Saturn aspects are not always friendly. But it is going to be trining some things that are going to be kind of going on in your chart. And like, I think the Saturn, it doesn't really matter how old you are. When you have Saturn crossing your ascendant, I've seen this with clients, and I had this, I think I had Saturn crossing my ascendant when I was like 22, 23. I just remember being like, oh my God, there's my first, like, you know, gray hair, or like, what's going on with my knee? You're just like noticing like stiffness, you know, you're more aware of your age. And Saturn does not do well in Aries because it does not have experience. It's the baby of the zodiac. So, you know, for a chart like this, I'd be like, look, it's not about expecting authority figures to give you recognition. It's about you giving it to yourself. And it may be in a more physical form. So a lot of it can be about physical fitness, endurance. It can also be about weightlifting. It can be about hiking. It can also be about trimming extra weight. So it is possible that it can be about like getting in better physical shape. Last time it happened, I was literally a toddler, so I don't remember the lessons. Well, ask your mom what happened when you were like, what, like 3 years old, you know? Did you fall off a bike and like get a black eye, you know? Did they realize that they needed to put pads and helmets and stuff on you? Did you have a good kind of crash and burn? Usually Aries risings have a scar somewhere on their forehead or around like their eyebrows, or like there was some kind of gash or like something that happened when they were younger. I've seen all Aries placements have it. Aries risings, Aries suns, Aries moons. I'm an Aries moon, and I've got a birthmark right in the center of my forehead. So that's how you can always tell if somebody's got some really prominent kind of Aries placements, is you'll see that. And just, you know, be careful around some of those conjunctions that are going to be happening in the third week of April. But in your case, it's trining some stuff in your charts, trining Jupiter in your natal whole sign 9th house. I think this is about you feeling more confident being a teacher, and feeling like, you know what, people are respecting me and I'm getting recognition, and also probably feeling a sense of fulfillment because you're feeling like you're really making a difference. Yeah, all the Aries placements are going to chime in now. It's always like that. Or I see a lot of Aries placements that have like their eyebrow pierced, or, I mean, it's weird, but there's always some kind of scar somewhere like on their face or like right around their hairline. So that's how you guys can always spot them. But yeah, swing back around and let me know what's happening in April. And hopefully, fingers crossed, you know, they're showing up one of those days where you're having some good like Mars aspects, because this is the time that you actually want to get the kind of review. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Matt. All right, we've got Alyssa who wants Sinistry. We've got Lakshmi. We've got Grace. You're welcome. I'm glad to hear things are going better. All right, so Alyssa. And this was Sinistry. All right, so let's see what Alyssa had to say here. What's up, girl? All right, so Alyssa says, come on, there we go. All right, so you are March 11th, 95 at 5:06 a.m. in Illinois, and your partner is September 9th, 91 at, well, you didn't put what time, so I put noon, but I don't know if you know the time, but I always put the sun on the ascendant if we don't know their time. She says, boyfriend has a fearful, avoidant attachment style. It's very difficult to navigate the relationship. Does the astrology say we should separate? Also, what are the money dynamics in this relationship? 1:30 a.m. All right, well, that definitely helps. How long have you guys been together? I mean, in a nutshell, part of what's going on, just my 2 cents, is like you've had a number of retrogrades in your 7th house in this last year. You had a Mercury retrograde there this summer. You had a Mars retrograde there at the kickoff of the year. You also are getting ready to finally have Saturn, you know, leaving your sun sign and leaving your natal Saturn return. So that was going to be a period of being like, hey, I'm dealing with me stuff and I'm feeling blocked in relationships. And the sun opposes Chiron. So there's some relational issues where you feel like partners are wounded and that they don't always recognize you or choose you. And sometimes you feel like abandoned or alone, right, Pisces? And this is really a great example of astrology. So, you know, in Placidus housing system, I don't use whole sign unless I'm doing like general predictions, but sometimes you have, you know, houses where, you know, there's signs or there's planets that are intercepted. So if you look at this, you're not a typical Aquarius rising where the second house is Pisces. Pisces intercepted. So that means that through the themes of Pisces and Virgo, which is about sacrifice and service, and also through the themes of self-esteem, security, money, and resources, and intimacy, values, and support of other people, there's something missing. You can't quite see something very clearly, right? So that tells me that there's something that should be very unusual about your Jupiter and also about your Mercury. All right, well, we've got Jupiter squaring your Saturn and your Sun, and we've also got Jupiter squaring Chiron, so this may suggest that you have a tendency to like want to go into like professions where you're healing or you're teaching or you're like showing other people things to kind of like offset and kind of counterbalance some of the issues that maybe you've had in relationships. And your Mercury sits on your ascendant. It inconjuncts or quincunxes Chiron, so you try to communicate and you try to talk to partners about what's going on, but they retreat. Chiron retrograde, Mars retrograde, and the sun is conjunct Saturn. In theory, like this chart reads to me like somebody who's always willing to communicate, somebody who wants to be with their partner, but they feel like they're constantly pushed away. And on top of that, you've got Venus that is in your 12th house. So it's like, you know, some of these things are what you were going to kind of bring in. Like you have to kind of work with them. But I think having the sun and Saturn is like there's this identity that's like life is hard, men are difficult, you know, people leave you and you get hurt. So, you know, you can kind of play into that. Or you can lean more into the square with Jupiter where you could go, well, instead of putting all of my energy trying to like build a boyfriend, you know, this is not HGTV. Like, how can I go and like teach and help and inspire other people? How can I apply some of these themes to wanting to help others? Or, you know, from a whole sign perspective, this would be in your 11th house. So it's like you spend time with friends, right? You focus on your goals. You don't lose yourself in the relationship. So over the last couple of years, between having your Saturn return where you were going to feel alone, it wasn't going to matter what was going to happen. Having Saturn hitting your sun where you had to really reinforce the relationship with yourself and change and transform and be better with your boundaries and prioritize you than others. And then you had eclipses that were going on through Pisces and Virgo. I mean, you could be getting your ass kicked. So, you know, in this next year, you're going to see that Jupiter's going to go into your 7th house, which can actually bring more kind of connectedness and like commitment and like deeper kind of connections with relationships. And you're going to see in August, there's going to be an eclipse there. So that's going to be a time you're going to want to watch. End of the year gets a little different, a little bit more difficult because you're going to start to see the beginnings of what's going to be a Mars retrograde in early 2027. So the jury's still out. There's some relationship stuff that's going to kind of get worked out, especially with some of the eclipses that are happening. She said, I've had a pattern of being with wounded men, and I've been so conflicted about work versus relationships. I teach about relationships for work, and my current boyfriend has been very upset about my commitment to work because it takes me away from him. Well, fuck him. I mean, sorry to be so like blunt, but it's like, no, that's not how it works. You know, that's part of Chiron square your Jupiter, and Jupiter is your husband. It doesn't matter, you know, even though the sun rules your 7th house, with Mars retrograde connected to your 7th house, no. You have an exalted Jupiter, and you do not let a relationship get in the way of what you're meant to do and going and teaching people. If he's like weird and like not showing up in the relationship, but also doesn't want you to be successful, time for a new boyfriend, because that's going to be a problem that you're going to see that's going to happen over and over and over again. Especially like that Mars retrograde. I've experienced people who have Mars retrograde in Leo, like sometimes they can be very insecure and like they can kind of stir the pot and there can be some drama. And it does make an opposition to Venus. So that'll mean that, you know, you're more kind of giving and sacrificial with Venus in the 12th. And then the Mars retrograde connection is like people who like will pitch a fit because they're like, you're away from me. But what you'll realize is that a little bit of distance actually makes the heart grow fonder. I mean, with some of the oppositions and the squares that you have in your chart, you have to keep certain relationships at a safe distance. She said, we actually broke up after I submitted my questions. So I'm working on moving out now. Oh my goodness. All right, well, let me get on to... Now I don't feel so bad telling you that because you guys might go kind of round and round for a little bit. So he's a Virgo rising. Oh my God, what a nightmare. I've dated one of these, Virgo rising, Venus retrograde in the 12th. Yuck. So here's the thing, you know, and this is just me being honest. It's very obvious to me that he has not learned his lesson, okay? So there has been eclipses and Saturn transits going through his 7th house and he's just not getting it. And he looks at his partner and he's like, why are you so emotional? Why are you like crying? Like what's going on? As there's been eclipses and retrogrades here. Because all of this has been opposing his sun, and the sun on the ascendant for Virgo rising means they are their worst enemy. There is a side of them that is childlike and creative and fun and charming, but then there's a side of them that is like a spoiled brat toddler. And he's like a double Virgo. So, you know, sun on the ascendant means that he's here to learn more about himself and like his relationship with himself, and he can be super critical. Anyway, Jupiter rules his 7th of relationships. And so what's happening right now is Jupiter is in the 11th house, which means, you know, a partner's ready for a deep spiritual connection. They are ready for, hey, let's do life together. Like, let's talk about having kids. Let's spend more time with our friends. Let's do community things. And like, this guy does what he wants to do, but then he can be very much a homebody because he's got all these planets in the 4th house. Eclipses in his 7th house, retrogrades. I mean, honestly, you're going to get to about end of February, going into March, and Mercury's going to retrograde, and he's going to come back around. That's what's going to happen. You're going to see with Mercury retrograde in the 7th, he's going to be like, can we try again? And it's all in opposition to his sun because he's going to be lonely. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. If he can't show up and if you're moving out, like he needs to see like that you're leaving him alone. Jupiter's also on his south node. I mean, it's quite literal. There's, you know, a partner moving out of his house, and he's also kind of at a crossroads with his career, and like you want a partner that's going to be supportive of what you're doing out in the world. I think that's really important with some of the squares that you have, and somebody who recognizes their flaws and they're aware of it and they're working through it. And like, you don't want to be their therapist, you know, or explain like how your love style is and their love style is if they're not willing to kind of evolve. I'm viewing apartments tomorrow in a different state. Well, I'm not surprised. You're like the Saturn Neptune where it's you being like, peace out, I'm gone. And then some of the financial implications that are going to be kind of coming for him as Saturn and Neptune goes into the 8th house. But, you know, Saturn will oppose Mars, which means what's going to happen is he's going to realize that, you know, his tendency to either be indecisive or a little too spend happy or whatever is now going to have like an impact, and he's not going to have a partner. And he is Venus retrograde too. So he loves differently. You know, these ones, I'm not just saying that, like, he's got a lot of difficult aspects in his chart for relationships. Should you guys be breaking up? I mean, would, could, should. I'm always cautious to answer those questions, but I can tell you what the composite says. So the midpoint composite between the two of you guys gives you a Gemini rising, Sun on the ascendant, this is funny, Moon in Virgo, and it looks like for the last month, Mercury was kind of doing its dance, going like retrograde in your 7th. So there was a lot of like, you're doing this, you're doing that. It's like the Spider-Man meme where they're both pointing at each other, you know? And there was like a lot of conflict that was kind of happening in the relationship and the values and what people needed. And like, it hasn't been going very well. And because Mercury rules both of you guys independently and how you communicate, and because it rules your 4th house and the South Node is swinging through there, hitting Mars and the Moon, it means somebody's getting pissed off and they're like, this is not healthy. I'm moving. I'm leaving. So the South Node Moon is, you know, what you want to watch out for is being like, you know, are you guys going to argue over like who owns the couch or the toaster, or, you know, who bought the fridge or who's got what? Like there can be a sense of you guys getting very petty with one another. About who's taking what, and I would say like don't go there, because, and also don't keep things kind of open-ended either, because there can be a sense of you guys kind of connecting quite a bit actually in March if it's not like done. So when the South Node has been in conjunction to Mars for the last month, lots of arguments, lots of fights over responsibility, lots of fights over work, lots of fights over not feeling emotionally connected, and then mood swings. And so it's basically saying this is going to continue until the South Node leaves your Moon, which will be basically until the end of the month. Now, the relationship is ruled by Jupiter. Where is your guys' Jupiter? It's in Libra. Jupiter trines the Sun. I mean, I bet when it's good, it's good. I don't think it's all bad, but I do think that being that Saturn and Neptune in conjunct and quincunx the Sun, like you guys just you don't speak the same language. Like maybe you're dealing with somebody who's not very self-aware, and there isn't like a lot of them having the awareness of like how they're kind of coming across. And anybody who's got Sun in the 1st house can have that very kind of fiery, feisty energy. And like that double Virgo energy at 18 is like very self-critical, but they project that onto other people. So it can be really hard to be in a relationship with some of them. So do I think that this was like a destined time? I mean, I do think somebody was going to move out. Yeah, the South Node was kind of like triggering that. Yeah, and those ones with the retrogrades, and I could see in your chart with like Mars retrograde, I was like, there's something off and like tantrums and childlike about him. And then of course he had Venus retrograde in his 12th. I mean, it's like they get very jealous, and they also have a tendency to kind of have like this, sometimes Venus retrograde in the 12th house, especially in Leo, very idealistic views of what love should be. Like it should be all romance and rainbows and butterflies. And then when they get into those relationships, they realize that's not really how that stuff works. Anyway, I do think with the Sun on the ascendant, it's about teaching you guys that it's about communicating and expressing your authenticity. And so he may think that his truth is his truth. You think your truth is your truth. You guys don't have to agree. But if you guys can't communicate very well, then there's definitely going to be a sense of there being more friction. And I would say if you were to have stayed in this, you probably would have gotten to when Saturn started opposing your Jupiter in your composite chart, and somebody would have been like, no, I don't want to get married, or no, I don't want to have kids, or like your friends would have gotten sick of hearing you complain about him, and it would have created like a lot of like relational issues, and then it would have been even more difficult for you to kind of like transition out of that relationship. So is it done yet? Maybe not right now. I think that you have to kind of get through the Mercury retrograde and like fully decide where you're getting settled and where you're going. And like maybe it's going to take you leaving for him to kind of really get it, that it's done. And in terms of just, you know, relationships in general, girl, you're about to have an eclipse on your descendant over the summer. That's going to bring somebody new in. This is also going to be followed by a Jupiter transit, which is going to bring somebody in who's going to want to commit to you. And you're also going to find that there is still some working out some of the kinks in relationships at the beginning of 2027. But at least in the summer, you know, Jupiter expanding your 7th house of relationships, trining Saturn, you're going to find people who are going to make you feel a little bit more secure, or they're going to make you feel valued. And I think communication can be better as well. And there's opportunities, maybe even travel with relationships. So it's like, and you're getting restless with Uranus coming into your 4th house, whole Placidus. So that's about moving, you know, going from one apartment to another. That'll kind of hang around for a year. But whole sign perspective, I think like Pluto on the ascendant for Aquarius risings are like, you know, coming into their power. They're being more assertive. Uranus in the 5th house is they're kind of, you know, ready to shake things up in the love department. So a lot of those things kind of check out in your transits as well. And I would say get back on the horse and be more so open to maybe dating, especially as you're kind of getting into like Gemini through Leo season over the summer, right? You won't always choose super emotionally reactionary people, but I mean, you are drawn to that Leo energy. You know, in all fairness, his Venus sits on your descendant. That's why you like him. But it opposes your Mercury. So he doesn't always, you know, like show you love the way that you need it. And I think it's more your Sun conjunct Saturn. You know, usually when I see Sun Saturn here, there's a sense of feeling kind of like disconnected or not getting the love or support that they need from a parent or a father figure. And it can kind of translate to, you know, seeking people who are not totally emotionally available when you get into relationships. Subconsciously, Pisces, you know, choosing relationships that make you feel alone. And so really with a chart like this, I'd be like, the best relationship you're going to have with yourself. So if you're in a relationship with somebody and you know that it's not being true to yourself or kind to yourself, but being with someone who treats you like that, you have to put yourself first and be like, nope. Especially with Jupiter going through your 5th house this year, there is better things to come. Leave his ass and don't fight over all the stuff in the process. It's not worth it. Good luck. Would not wish one of those charts on my worst enemy. That's one handful of a person. You're welcome. All right, we're moving on. So we're going to take Lakshmi, Grace, and then Carla. I can't tell you. I've got probably about 4 or 5 clients who are all going through separations. They're all like Scorpio or Sag risings, but they're all going through separations with Virgo sun, Virgo rising, like Mars or Venus and like Leo men, and they all tell me the same thing, and I'm like, oh man. Virgo risings, man, I wonder if mine will come back. Only if they're gonna clean the house and do your laundry. They're good for very specific things. Oh, all right, for Lakshmi. All right, so Lakshmi says, let's see. All right, December 26, 1990, 4:20 p.m. What does the next 6 months look like regarding my career, home, and my family life? Let's see, career, home, and family life. So, I mean, let's see, writing project success. If you didn't already sign up, well, readings are closed, but hopefully we can catch you next time. We had a lot of people for this full moon tonight. So your career is tied to Jupiter. I mean, my focus would be more on career, knowing that you're wrapping up a Saturn and Neptune transit the next 2 months, and that the North Node is going to be conjunct your midheaven until about the summer. So that's really prioritizing what's going on with your career and kind of rising up in your career ladder. You'll see an eclipse there that's going to be in the beginning of March in a retrograde. So that might mean that there is some changes going on with bosses and status and stuff like that. And then you'll also see an eclipse. You're going to see a retrograde that's going to be in your 10th house. So let me show you that. And then you'll see an eclipse that's going to be in your 4th. This is the chart of somebody who's like, their career is growing, they're getting more status, they're getting more recognition. Maybe there's a career job or a status change that's going to happen in the Mercury retrograde in February, right here. And it looks like because Mercury is your chart ruler, it's going to retrograde conjunct Venus. So there may be an unexpected change with a boss or a superior or like a woman at work, and you might actually rise into your position, or there's going to be a review of your position, which might bring you more money. And then you want to watch for the eclipse, which is going to impact your home. And this is going to be more challenging to deal with because the eclipse is going to be bringing up for you where there may be some changes that are going to be happening at home. South Node eclipse where you're moving or changes kind of going on with your family, you're kind of clearing things out that's kind of happening emotionally, that does impact your work. So like, for example, I've seen some Gemini risings go through this where they're like, okay, I'm, taking on a new position and now I have to relocate. Or I've seen some that are like, yeah, I'm deciding that I'm needing to prioritize what's going on with my home or my family, so I'm taking time away from work. Like there is this kind of work-life, home-life balance that you're dealing with February into March. And so think back to what happened in the spring of 2025. We had an eclipse there and a Mercury retrograde in the same signs. So it may bring up some of the same stuff. And you're concluding what has been a year of having had Saturn and Neptune squaring your Mercury. So it's kind of like you going, where am I going with, with my career? What is happening? And possibly feeling like you've been trying to get a lot of readings, or you've been trying to get some career advice, or maybe talking to astrologers or talking to partners, being like, where am I supposed to go? But you've had that critical Mercury at 29 degrees. So there's a lot of making decisions based off of what other people tell you that you should do. So I would take everybody's advice with a grain of salt, mine included. I think Mercury retrograde is really saying that you do benefit from having a job mentor, or somebody who's helping you get hired, or maybe you are, working with a company that's trying to do job placement. If you're not sure of what you want to do, and this is also about big changes that's going to be happening in your status. So it's not just your career, it's also connected to your relationship status. And then the other, let's see, what was the other bit of this? So it was about your career, your home, and your family life. I mean, your home and your family life are ruled by Mercury, and there's been a lot of not knowing what's going to happen, right? Because Saturn and Neptune have been squaring. So it's almost like the universe has been saying, focus on your career. Don't worry so much about relationships, or, you're not too sure what's going to happen with relationships, or other people, are kind of confusing, or maybe there's a lot of back and forth with your relationship with siblings or aunts or uncles or cousins. And so there is like this sense of you kind of going, all right, well, you know what, other people are creating a lot of frustration for me, or they're telling me what I should do, and everybody's kind of giving me feedback, and now you're breaking away from that, really prioritizing your professional life. And it's not just important because Saturn is there, it's also important because the North Node is there. And if you're really kind of navigating some of the changes that you're making with your career intuitively, it'll make you feel more secure, but it can also bring you more money, right? Let's see. So I don't know if Miss Lakshmi is here, but this is, oh, there she is. Hi, Candace. When would be the best time to buy a home? Not anytime soon. Not with Saturn and Neptune square your Mercury, because you don't know where you're going to be working or how long you're going to be working there, what direction you're going in. So that's a big no-go. I think that if you are going to do something like that, wait until those come out of the square. Let's do something like when Jupiter starts coming into a trine, maybe. So like if you're thinking about buying a house, it looks like you're going to start thinking about it in kind of the fall of 2026. And then what's going to happen is Mars is going to retrograde and Jupiter is going to retrograde. So if you have not moved in the fall, then Mars is going to retrograde. It's going to conjunct Jupiter. It's going to trine your Mercury. And you're looking at maybe buying in the spring of 2027. I don't know where you live, but there could be a lot of issues in the fall of 2026. Be very careful with Mars retrograde. There could be issues with kitchens. There could be problems with ovens. You could have stuff that's breaking down. There could be houses that you find that actually like aren't sustainable, or they're having kind of problems with like heating or with plumbing. So if you do end up getting a house, you need to get it thoroughly inspected. And I recommend either buying before December or you wait and you do this in April of 2027, because I think that would be a better time. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Lots of career stuff that needs to kind of have a breakthrough here, babe. That's more of what you're kind of looking at first. There's always a holdback. I was hoping for August and September. You're going to be looking in that time. You can be looking, but a lot of it depends on where you're buying. And to be honest with you, you know, when I look at your chart, I want to see the South Node out of your fourth house, because I feel like you could buy something that turns into like literally a bottomless pit or like a money pit, and a lot of like gutting and things that you're going to have to clear out. You are going to have eclipses that are going to be there. So what you'll find is like March, there's going to be an eclipse where you're like, okay, I'm really fed up with where I'm living. I want to move. Then you're going to have an eclipse around mid-August, which is going to help you feel more comfortable in looking. But I think you're going to explore other areas or other like neighborhoods. And then it's going to be the next step of you being like, okay, now I'm going to start getting ready to look. So you can start looking in like July, August. But if you have not moved by November, then you need to wait until the spring of 2027. Timing is very important when you're dealing with South Node eclipse stuff in your 4th house, because I've seen people who try to like rush to move and then like the house has like a lot of problems. Let's see. So we've got Grace and then Carla. You're welcome. All right, let's pull up Grace. Grace, 6/22/1990, 11:40 p.m. in India. She says, what can I expect in 6 months in my career? Is there a chance of changing jobs that I will get interested in? How are you, Candace? I love your work. Now my husband has joined me also. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think with, wow, look at all your Cancer stuff that's getting triggered. You're like, what's going to happen with work? As probably a lot of things have been quite chaotic over the last like month and a half, huh? You had like a retrograde at work. You had a bunch of planets going through there, coming down on you, squaring your Saturn and your Neptune. And you're like, I should be optimistic about having all of this work, but I don't know if I enjoy it. And then as a Cancer, having Saturn and Neptune, you know, getting ready to go into Aries, it does represent lots of challenges for Cancer suns, for Cancer moons. And being a little bit more like assertive and taking some kind of action when it comes to some career moves. So, you know, I think that you're through the thick of it now. We have to look at Jupiter transits to get a better idea of what's going to happen with your career. It just also happens to rule your ascendant. I'm going to be really honest with you, okay? I'm sure your husband's listening. When Jupiter goes into your 5th house and it starts trining your ascendant and it also rules your 10th, you need to do one of a very few things. You either need to start a business that is connected to children. So it could be children's publishing, it could be drawing, it could be children's clothing. It could also be things connecting to parties or entertainment. Or it's a time that you're going to start discussing or talking about becoming a parent or having a kid. And it's very possible with Jupiter hanging out in your 5th house all year, and also eclipses that are still going to be in Pisces in your 1st house, because Jupiter wants you to be seen as somebody who's having fun, being jolly, growing, and expanding. So if you're not pregnant, creating, traveling, publishing, or, you know, doing domestic things, right? Jupiter could be baking. It could be things that are connected to Cancer, you know, building a home, doing a home business. These would be things that you enjoy. And I have a theory that if you have your moon, or if you have Venus, or if you have your 4th house ruler in the 4th house, or even sometimes even Jupiter in the 4th house, that's your ruler, you can work from home, and like, you've got that. It will be a huge focus for you for the next year. Saturn's going into Aries, where you're like, okay, I want to make more money, and it's going to start squaring your 10th house, where you're going to go, I don't know if I want to do it the way that I've always done it or work for somebody else. And then it's going to start squaring all of your planets that are going to be in Cancer. And Aries is about being pioneering, self-sufficient, and independent. So you have the chart of somebody who would do very well working in real estate, right? Jupiter and Cancer in your 4th. It is conjunct Chiron, so it might mean that you're like, well, I'm not crazy about the idea of selling houses or managing houses or dealing with Airbnbs or being a landlord, but you could do it. I also think that this allows you to do some kind of like teaching or education from home, because your midheaven's out at 21, or anything connected to legal work, publishing. What is it that you do for work? Because really it wants you to have fun. Like it wants you to do something that's going to be more fun or more so creative. And I would assume that was coming up for you even at the beginning of this last year, right? We started in 2025 with Mars retrograde kind of going from Leo into Cancer. So there could have been a sense of you being like, well, are there hobbies or things that I want to do that are creative? You know, is it possible? And maybe there was like a little bit of a stall, but I think that it's coming back now, and it's trying to get you to think about doing more of this stuff. And I think this will come up for you. If you put it on hold and you decide not to do anything with it, it'll probably hang around until about March, when Jupiter goes direct on your natal Jupiter. And then you'll also see more of a sense of wanting to, try to initiate and like either start a new business or do something that's going to be more fun or entertaining in April. And then you'll have another time to consider doing this when there is a retrograde in your 5th house at the end of June going into July. But she says, I'm working in a lab as an engineer, okay? I would have loved, enjoyed more if work is related to my passion, but I'm not doing that now. So wondering when would be a good time to have the career move. I mean, during your Jupiter return, which you're having this year, definitely, I mean, it depends on what your quote unquote passion is, but you're going to have Jupiter come back and conjunct your Jupiter again. And that is, so it started in August and it's going to come back and hit your Jupiter again around the end of January. And then it's going to hit it again direct. And that looks like that's going to be happening for you in April. So it does look like there is some kind of give, right? Jupiter in the 5th house is, I'm going to create this thing or I'm going to do something that's more fun. Well, it's squaring all that Aries in your 2nd. So it means like, well, am I working part-time, or am I deciding to segue away from what I've been doing and having a steady paycheck? I like to work on space-related studies. That's my passion for a long time. Okay. Well, it's because you got Chiron and Jupiter conjunct, what is that? It's conjunct Sirius, right? So, that does deal with like skies and space. And also you got your midheaven that's conjunct a lot of things that deal with like black holes and things. I mean, look, you could focus on publishing. You could do research. You could be doing other things where maybe you're still doing things that's kind of connected to some of that stuff, but it's going to be through education. It's going to be publishing or teaching in some way. So could you do it? Absolutely. But it wants you to either teach or it wants you to publish. So I don't think it's just going to be, oh, well, I'm just doing research. I think it's going to be a little bit more in depth than that. I know that when you have a really strong Jupiter transit in the future, like when Jupiter starts trining Saturn, that might bring you more sustainability. And Jupiter will be moving into your whole sign 6th house, which is going to deal with like a new office or like a new job. And things do seem to imply at the end of August that can be possible. And then you're going to see another window where Mars will retrograde in your 10th house where you could change jobs. And that's going to be right at the beginning of 2027. So if you put this off, it's going to keep coming back up for you, or it's going to say invest in the things that you love. So I like the idea of you being able to do what you love doing, but it needs to be something that you're able to do from home. So I'm wondering if there's a way for you to be able to make content, media, some kind of residual income that can allow you to do what you're doing while you're trying to kind of find a way to find your groove. And the North Node on your Pluto also is going to make you, Pluto conjunct your North Node is also going to really put the emphasis on teaching and sharing collectively with groups, right? That's a big transit, Grace. That's a time where you're supposed to be really kind of taking your vision and your beliefs and sharing it with other people. So there could be group learning events. You could be creating a channel. You could be deciding that you want to start a group or an association that's going to be more space and kind of astrological or, philosophical or astronomical kind of connections. And I do think that with some of the aspects that you're going to be having, like that opposition to Jupiter, you're going to find that it's less about feeling like you need to find a job that works into your schedule. I think it's going to be a lot of Pisces risings are going to go, I don't care. I just have to do what makes me happy. And if it means that I have to work harder or I'm going to be making less money, so be it. And this next year would be the building year. And then you would really start to see things kind of stabilize once Saturn is, getting into your 2nd house and then it's starting to trine your midheaven about June of next year. So it would probably take you about a year to about 18 months to kind of see it through. But I do think it would bring you more joy. I also think that this is really trying to kind of get you on path with the North Node where you're going to be mixing and mingling and like connecting or networking with people who can really help you kind of get into the path career-wise that you would like to kind of be on. A lot of oppositions between Cancer and Capricorn. And usually when you have that, there's a sense of going, okay, well, I'm going to play it safe. I'm going to take the job that I know that I need to be able to pay the bills, take care of things, do what I need to do. But I do think a lot of like Pisces risings with these transits next year are going to go, money isn't everything. And whether it's budgeting or you're deciding that you're going to start a side hustle or something to help make it possible for you to kind of segue into doing more of what you want to do, you'll have more wherewithal. And I think you're going to have more of a feeling of being devoted and committed to a craft that's really kind of coming online.
Jupiter in your 6th house is a great time to also, I think, just expand what you're doing work-wise. And that does mean that it might mean that you're just bringing more time for creativity or bringing more time for writing or for some kind of sharing or teaching into your everyday routine. So if you can find positions that allow you to focus on what you love, but also be able to teach, or if you were to decide, hey, I'm gonna create a children's book or something that brings in residual income, so you could go do more of the work that you want to do without the stable paycheck, may not necessarily be a bad idea. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Look at even Uranus on your Venus. I mean, like, what a wonderful time to be like, oh, I'm going to start a YouTube or I'm going to start a blog, you know. I even started to like your work due to more detail oriented about planetary positions, trying to buy a home and put a hold on my job. Yeah, I mean, like, look, you know, money makes the world go round, right? So I'm realistic. I get that you have that really strong kind of Saturn energy, but the truth is that, I mean, if you really want freedom because you've got Jupiter and planets in your 4th house, if you were to buy a property or buy a home, buy a cheaper home or something that you can afford, you know, or something that you're going to fix up, or make the decision that maybe you'd consider getting something that's got a smaller unit or something on it that you could rent out. Because Jupiter in your 4th house would be wonderful if you could manage a unit or have a small Airbnb or something that you can manage from home that's bringing in income. So it's going to give you the opportunity to do what you want to do, right? Difficult oppositions. I'm about 6-7 months older than you. I've got some of the same oppositions, and it's always a balancing act with all that Cancer and all that Capricorn. We're all going to kind of get hit in this next year with those Saturn squares, which is basically going to say to all of us in Aries, like, okay, you know, if you want to find the balance, you got to make it happen. So this is about you becoming a lot more resourceful or handy, right, Aries? Good luck. Let me know what happens. Pop back in here in a couple of months. I'd be curious to see what you're up to. All right, we have got Carla and Getty. Am I saying your name right? And then Alicia. Good luck. Thanks for watching my astro weather, my Sunday service. All right, let's pull up Carla, and let's see, where is she? There's so many of you guys. All right, Carla, she's May 7th, 1996. What's up, girl? You're welcome. She says, what can I expect in 2026? Saturn return, insights welcome, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Virgo rising. All right, so the good, the bad, and the ugly. So your Saturn's at a 3. Well, we'll start with the good. You know, because you're a Virgo rising, you always want to watch what's going on with Mercury transits, right? So we got 3 Mercury retrogrades a year. The Mercury retrogrades that we're going to have this year are going to be in February into March in your relationship zone. Then you're going to have one in June into July in your friendship, kind of goal-related socializing zone. And then you're going to have another one that's going to be happening in Scorpio, which will be a little bit more tricky for you because you have Scorpio intercepted in your 3rd house, which is going to deal with communication, signing documents, moving, and vehicles. We don't make any changes with those things, especially in the fall, because Venus will retrograde. We're not buying a car, we're not moving, we're not signing leases, because that's going to be very difficult for you with some of the squares that you're going to be having to Pluto. The good is that Uranus is about to leave this conjunction with your Mercury. So if you have been feeling a little taxed with changes with your career, you know, changes about your beliefs, feeling like there's been some frantic traveling or some kind of intensity revolving around your beliefs about money, that's getting ready to subside. The other good is that you kick off the year strong. I would have to say probably Virgo risings and Capricorn risings, I think, are going to fare the best with some of these transits over the next couple of weeks, because you have the Mars, Venus, Sun conjunction all happening in your 5th house, right on top of your moon, which is great for socializing and meeting people if you're single, right on top of Jupiter, great for meeting people. If you're in a relationship, it's about getting serious about date night and romance. And this is like super creative, romantic, fertile energy. So it's starting the year off with, I want to play, I want to create, but it's Capricorn. So it means that you have to make having fun serious business. You have to make time for it. whether that's dating or, creative hobbies or kind of connecting in relationships. It's all being driven by Saturn, which is in your 7th. More good is that you're going to see some eclipses that are going to happen in your 7th house, which can also bring some kind of karmic relationship matters to fruition. So you'll see Mercury retrograde there February and March. You'll see an eclipse that's going to be on your ascendant in opposition, which can create some relational dynamic stuff that can kind of come up. In March, you'll be under a Jupiter-Juno transit, so that's also really good for relationships and meeting prominent people or solidifying existing relationships. The bad, I don't like saying bad, but the bad is like, yeah, you're going into your Saturn's return. So in May, you turn 30, which means you're going to be in an annual perfection year 7. And when you're in your Saturn's return, yours already kind of was heating up in this last year. When Saturn and Neptune went into Pisces, it was already like, ooh, what changes are happening, when it comes to intimacy and relationships and debt and like psychological shifts and like learning how to let go and doing a lot of self-reevaluation, because Aries is the self. It's also challenging to kind of see the forest through the trees when you're in the middle of your Saturn return. So like the whole year is important. It will get easier as you get into next year, and right around the time that you're like 31, 32, 33, you start seeing the fruit of your labor. But Saturn's at a 3, so it's going to be about the karma revolving around communications and intimacy. It's also going to be about dealing with debt, particularly relating to education or vehicles, so like paying off loans, dealing with expenses, credit cards. And it does trine your Pluto, so it's a very powerful Saturn trine. I mean, the dark side of the trine to Pluto might mean that, you're like, I have to pay off debt so I can get ahead, so I feel like I can, buy a house or I can make any changes. Oh, she says, I don't have any debt or loans. Well, great, keep it that way. Because sometimes when Saturn goes into the 8th house, things come up financially that kind of tempts you into going and taking a loan or taking out a credit card. So continue to stay on that. I just bought a house, so there you go. So the Saturn in the 8th house trining Pluto can potentially mean that you're trying to be more resourceful with your expenses and that you're trying to maintain the home. And Pluto at a 2 is going to be expenses relating to plumbing. Okay, so plumbing, floorboards. It can also mean that you're wanting to renovate things, you're wanting to gut things and transform things, or you're wanting to, fix things up or flip them. So that could be good. Saturn in the 8th house does also deal with, at some point, some kind of change or loss, okay? So at a 3, it's like, is there a difficult relationship that you have? Is there communication issues? Is it with a sibling? Is it going to be with a neighbor? That's usually what 3s are. And right after Saturn leaves your natal Saturn, it's going to start opposing Chiron. So it's definitely going to bring up some like relationship wounds that need to be worked on. Even if there's no relationship problems per se, it's going to be about you working through issues with like security and intimacy. The other thing that's a little challenging that you're going to be dealing with this year is that you're also going to be seeing that Pluto is sitting right on top of Uranus. So it's about radically changing and freeing yourself of outdated work routines, bad habits. You got to keep an eye on your nervous system. And as it's happening, it's squaring your Mars. Mars rules your 8th. So it's like, well, what patterns and habits do you have, whether it's what you're eating, what you're watching, your emotions that are kind of coming up because you're reluctant or you're resistant to change. Pluto-Mars squares make you feel frustrated. And so what I would recommend doing, seeing all of these 3s that are popping up, stationary bikes, walking routine, jogging routine, walking a pet, taking a dog out, something that's going to keep you moving. So it's going to kind of help you diffuse some of this energy. And then you will also see down the road that there is going to be, let's see, Uranus going back into your 10th house. So there could be some pretty dramatic career changes that are happening, May going into June. Launching a business, something that's independent. Maybe you're doing more than one thing at work or you're wearing more than one hat. Maybe there is some excitement that's happening at work and that's going to trine Pluto. So it can mean that it's like a hobby or something that you consider, turning into something that can be like more legit. It can also mean that there's a lot of stress that's kind of coming from work as now Uranus is squaring the North and South node and also your ascendant. I have a sales convention in May. Well, that's wonderful. I love Uranus being in the 10th house because it's very communicative. It's connecting with people. It's being visible. And it's like really opening the door for there to be other kind of like potential like job offers or connections or opportunities for sales or anything like that? And she said, but I was promoted this year. Cool. Well, I mean, anybody who's got a Gemini midheaven, you know, you guys are able to, you know, kind of like multitask. You have one position, but you guys are really flexible and you can do a lot of different things. And probably what you're going to find is that this is about kind of implementing more travel, because Pluto is going to be about travel, education, technology, learning, and connecting with new people or new groups or potentially even new people coming on board for your company. And that's really going to kind of, kind of update your schedule. So it's not going to be boring. There's a lot of excitement when Uranus is kind of going through your 10th house, and like there's a lot of socializing because it's going to be in an air sign. Neptune's also going to be conjunct your Saturn. So be mindful of any like issues with inflammation, allergies, drug interactions. I mean, even drinking and stuff. Usually when Saturn and Neptune are conjunct, that's a year that we want to kind of approach our health in a more sober way. And this can also mean that you have to be very cautious when dealing with relationships and like other people's money. So you might be trying to like negotiate sales and you're like pitching stuff to people. But in a relationship sense, you can find that you're either dating people who are not so forthcoming about their financial situation, or you have to really know who you're kind of merging with, either professionally or intimately, and that there could be some confusion regarding like, you know, joint finances with other people. So having those conversations like, okay, well, before we move in together, like, well, how much money are you making? How much debt are you in? You know, or before we decide that we're going to get married, let's talk about our budget and like those kinds of things. So you're going to have to be all over that for like basically the next 2 years. And with Saturn being there, it's saying the same thing. It's about getting a lot of clarity when it comes to other people's money and resources. Okay, so if you're married, then I would say this is very important, because Aries is about how other people do things impulsively. Saturn in the 8th house means that your partner may go through periods of time where it's like they're not as financially stable, or they're dealing with some challenges with finances or even with budgeting. And Saturn is going to also deal with romance and children. So there may be conversations about being like, okay, well, you know, are we having kids? If we are, when are we doing it? What does that look like? How is that going to impact our finances? And Saturn will be hitting or coming very close to your south node. So it's going to be about whether or not somebody is like physically or financially contributing to what's kind of going on with the home life, and potential conversations regarding whether or not you guys would have kids. Money is a big topic of conversations, and very top of our finances, but we will stay on top of it. We had a baby this year. Yeah. So yeah. And that's Saturn going into the 8th. And you're like, well, I'm prioritizing being a mom. Like, what's going on with your money? Right. Because it's kind of squaring all of the stuff in your 5th house. You're like, I'm on mommy duty. Even though you're still working, there is this emphasis in being like more aware of what you guys are spending together. And so there can be some kind of curbing of impulsive spending, or, you know, being a little bit more transparent with each other. But February through April is really when you want to watch, because you're going to see quite a few planets that are going to go through there. The darker side is like sometimes you do see with Saturn transits in the 8th house and the south node too, you know, because it's ruled by Mars, that it can be bringing up family inheritance stuff, or that things are being given to you, or that there is, you know, something that's being left to you, or some kind of emphasis on, you know, something that's leaving your life and like what you're receiving. On top of that, you know, you're also going to be seeing that Pluto is squaring Mars. So I do think it might bring some of that stuff up. Obviously, I hope not. But it would not surprise me at some point over the 2.5-year transit of Saturn in your 8th, you'll see that. And with Saturn being at a 3, like cousins and uncles and aunts, that's most likely what you're going to see. I don't want to tell you who it's going to be, but that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting. And then continue to watch, you know, the eclipses. I mean, if you had a baby in this last year, first of all, congrats, but girl, you're having a bunch of planets going through your 5th, so it's about hanging out and playing with your baby. If you're not trying to have another kid, be careful, because that eclipse is coming up on your ascendant in March, and then you're going to have Jupiter crossing your ascendant and another eclipse that's going to be happening in August. So there may be this discussion about, you know, during those times, are we doing another one? What's happening? And you might feel like you're just maybe not really totally ready until you're kind of getting closer into really like 2026, 2027, when Jupiter is crossing your ascendant. So you have the time. He was born in February 2025. He's an Aries rising. And yes, we do not want more children. One is enough. All right. So then keep an eye on that, Carla. Hopefully that was helpful for you. You're a good mom, though. Look at you. Moon in Capricorn, Jupiter in Capricorn. and you have an Aries rising, so that means he has an Aries rising, so that means your Saturn and your South Node sits on his ascendant. So he's your karma, girl. You're welcome. All right, so that was Carla. Now we've got, is it Giette? Am I saying your name right? Giette, Alicia, and Amanda. November 1964. Let's take a look. November 1964, 1:45 p.m. in Copenhagen. And she says, new job soon, or is there anything else that stands out? All the Pisces risings are like, please let me change my job soon. I know you guys have been put through the ringer. Well, your job is connected to Jupiter. Okay, and so part of what's been going on for the last year, babe, is you've had Saturn and Neptune in your first house of self, squaring your South Node on the midheaven and the North Node on the IC. So there's been this sense of kind of being like, where are things going? Like, you know, and also feeling like you're ready to just let it all go, because Saturn and Neptune in Pisces is like getting worn down or feeling exhausted. There can also be this feeling of you going like, I just feel like I can't go on any longer, or I'm not really seeing things so clearly with what's happening with work and also what's happening with your home. And then the retrogrades kind of, you know, really kind of inflamed that recently in November into December. So you're done. Jupiter is exalted in Cancer. It's retrograde until March. So it is possible that you don't really see too much happening until we get Saturn and Neptune further out of the square. And then Jupiter goes direct. So that's going to be in March. With Jupiter being in your 5th house, this means that it wants you to do things that are going to be either more speculative. So it can be taking risks, starting businesses, things that involve children, entertainment. It does sextile your moon and your natal Jupiter too. So it could be anything connecting to property, real estate, design, art, education, language. Jupiter conjunct the moon. You have a very prominent voice. Usually that in the 3rd house is like they're really excellent with communicating, with writing. They're very knowledgeable with language. And so I wonder if this is going to be about you teaching something connected to art, music, or design. I don't know if that interests you. Certainly with your Jupiter being the ruler, and it's in your, technically in your 2nd house, it's your whole sign, 3rd, there is an emphasis on writing, teaching, or educating. And this is all a Venusian energy, right? So it's about, you know, flowers, beauty, music, food, cosmetics. So there's something here that it's trying to get you to like focus on, like a pleasure project or a passion project, and see if that can actually develop into something that you can do more of. The other thing is like, look, Uranus is still in opposition to your sun, so you're going to feel like there is definitely some challenges or opposition in like changing your job or changing your habits. That's been kind of going on all year. That's now starting to subside. It'll get easier basically once we get to about April. So yeah, once it's no longer opposing your sun. And then you need to also see Jupiter forming a trine with your sun, and likely the breakthrough that you're looking for is probably going to be around the end of June going into July, when Jupiter trines your sun, and then you're going to have eclipses and Jupiter going into your 6th house, which is going to be a new habit, a new lifestyle, a new office, a new routine. And Leo is something that's going to be more creative, trining Saturn. A lot of Pisces and Pisces risings are going to suddenly be like, I'm getting into cooking, I'm getting into baking, or I'm getting into art, or I'm going to be doing design, or I'm going to be working with children, right, Leo? So I'm not saying you have to do those things, but there's something that's going to start to kind of break through right at the end of summer that's going to be pushing you to make this change. And I don't know if you've ever spoken to an astrologer before, but you know, it's pretty common when I see people who have the South Node conjunct their midheaven, like they come into this life and they're like, oh, I have, you know, all these goals and all these things I want to do. And like you can kind of be like the jack of all trades when you have it in Sag, because you're very talented in a multitude of things. And you realize as you kind of go through life that it feels unfulfilling. It's like the sense of being like, this is great, but this isn't really what I want to do. And you'll go job to job, profession to profession, and you'll have success and you'll make money, but there's a sense of not really like enjoying it or feeling, in your case, that it's pleasurable or that it's mentally stimulating. So your North Node at the bottom of the chart is kind of saying, okay, you've had many lifetimes where you've done the career stuff, there's been success, but really you're here to focus more on bringing in more of that North Node in Gemini. So living in different places, speaking different languages, being curious, making maybe changes in your home or being more flexible. And that's really going to be highlighting your Mercury. Well, Mercury is in your ninth. So it wants you to like move to another country, speak another language, teach, write, it wants you to every so many years be open to the idea of moving or going into either a new place that you're living or a new profession. And Mercury in Sag does have a little bit of debilitation here because, it can sometimes have all these bright ideas about changes with work or moving, and then, then the details kind of hit. And that's the square to Chiron. So where you're like, actually, that's not what I want. Like, it's a good job, but like, it's not good for me. And then Mercury also squares Uranus and Mars and Pluto. So it's also like relational dynamics. So your North Node ruler is wild. I would imagine every 7 years, your life changes in a pretty dramatic way. Right? But thus the life of a Scorpio, and also you're a full moon baby. So lots of changes with your finances, lots of changes, I think, also with your belief systems. If this were me, I would lean into the fact that, as a Pisces rising, the next couple of years, Uranus is going to be going into your whole sign fourth. You're going to feel like you want freedom, you want to move. That'll start really creeping up on you over the summer. If not, it's going to be more about traveling. There's going to be some relational things that are going to be still kind of going on and changing at least till the end of summer. And then there's probably going to be a big relationship shift where you're either getting in or out of a relationship at the beginning of 2027. And then you're going to start to see when Jupiter's trining your Mercury in your midheaven again, highlighted. So it looks like for you, because your birthday was pretty recent, you are in a Mars annual perfection, you're Aries, which means that this is a year that's more about Mars. So you're going to want to do Martian things. You're going to want to start things, which is great. It's a year one in 2026. Be more, I think, assertive, be more direct, be more about taking action. And you've got Mars in your whole sign seventh. So this is about you, kind of confronting either people at work or confronting relationships or working through issues, focusing on your money and your resources. So Mars transits right now are heating up in a big way where you're supposed to be more goal focused, connecting with people who have similar interests as you, so it can kind of help further some of your goals for your professional life. So that's what you want to do for the next 6 weeks. Then this will heat up again as we get into February through April, where it's going to be more financial. Trining your midheaven, it might be a time where you're feeling like you're willing to take risks and potentially do things that are different to see if it could actually bring you some kind of freedom or success, especially financially. So watch the Mars transits next year. This is becoming more self-focused and more kind of independent, and it does look like you're shedding a lot of things connecting to old relationships. Good luck. All right, we have got Alicia, and then we've got Amanda. All right, so let's see. Alicia says, June 1st, 1972 in Albany. My question is, what are your thoughts on the stellium over the ascendant oppositions? Looks terrifying. And how does the natal Sun, Saturn, Mercury, trine, Uranus, and Moon play out? Does it mean Saturn is combust, or but not Mercury, or both planets combust? So as a Capricorn rising, I would not be afraid at all about some of the transits that are happening. I would feel like you are the one of the rising signs that is just going to be like crushing it. Okay, so go based off of your ascendant sign first. You're playing with home field advantage. Mercury's in your sign, so this means that you're more open to focus on details, communicate, connect, focus on scheduling and work. Venus is there, so it's bringing you more beauty, love, harmony, and kind of relational opportunities, professional opportunities. Sun means that you're ushering in this energy of power and attraction and change. And then Mars is there, which basically means that you're feeling like you can get stuff done. This is all also connected to Saturn, which is the ruler and your ruler, which is moving through Pisces. So this is about going after what you want, because Saturn and Neptune are still in your second. So it might mean you're spending money. It might mean you're changing your style. It might mean you're just realizing your worth, and like Stella's kind of getting her groove back. That's how I see it. What I would also say is really important to think about is like, yeah, you're going to have planets. Planets are basically combust now, right? And I think a lot, you of all people probably can feel it, but when planets are within a few degrees on either side of the sun, they're getting burned up. So, you know, Venus conjunct the sun is like, oh my God, I've got a lot of work going on. Or there's this fixation with indulgence and sweets and beauty. Sun conjunct Mars, I like because it's really sexy and it makes you go after your goals and it makes you like have a lot of passion and a lot of drive and getting things done. But they're going to Cazimi soon. So you're going to see that Venus is going to Cazimi here on the 6th, which is like some major transformation for you, like big time, and it's trining the moon. So it might actually bring you some kind of resources or wealth, or it's like a positive psychological shift with money. And then you're going to see Mars and Venus are going to conjunct, which is going to be here around the 7th. And then you're going to see the Mars Sun Cazimi. I mean, like this whole next week is like wild. Yeah, it's opposing your Mars, but I feel like in the first house, you have a lot of like drive and charisma, and like people are going to see you, and it's just going to attract a lot of partners. The full moon is saying the same thing. So what I like about what's happening with the full moon, and I told everybody this last week, I was like, look, when the full moon comes in, it's going to be highlighting these oppositions that are getting ready to happen to Jupiter, which is going to make everything feel bigger. So as the moon's coming into conjunction with Jupiter, it means that there is a meeting and a connection with somebody. Jupiter can be somebody who sees something that you do not see, your blind spot, or a psychic, an intuitive, right? 7th house could be an astrologer. It could be a therapist. It could be, you know, a partner or a client. So a lot of the full moon is about you maybe connecting with other people or people who can kind of see things about you that you don't see. And I think you're going to get some compliments. You're going to have people who are like, oh, I like what you're wearing, or like people who might try to talk to you, or a partner if you're in a relationship that's going to be a little bit more affectionate. And the moon is going to be full right on your Mars. I mean, that's sexy. People are going to be just really kind of like direct with you. And those oppositions mean that people are just going to be kind of observing you and feeling more attracted to you. Now, tomorrow it gets a little tricky because you're going to start to see, or the day after the full moon, the moon's going to start squaring Chiron, and then it's going to start opposing stuff. So it gets a little sticky on the 4th. But everything is basically combust until you get to the 6th through the 11th. And then when those Cazimis are different and they start to kind of separate, then we're going to see them all start coming up on your North Node. So Venus, the Sun, Mars sitting on your North Node, ruled by Saturn. I mean, I think it's about you, honestly, being more conservative with some of the changes that you're going to kind of be having, maybe with your finances or maybe with your style. Like, I love the idea of Mars and Venus in Capricorn in your first. Like, go get yourself a nice leather jacket, or, you know, invest in something that's going to be a quality piece of something that's going to be kind of traditional, nothing flashy. From the perspective of Gemini, this is 8 signs away from your sun. So you're going to be like, oh, it's about me getting money from other people or dealing with debt or, you know, intimacy stuff. But like, it makes you like a little sex bomb with like Mars and Venus on your ascendant. Will the square to the nodes be rough? Well, not necessarily. The North Node's fine. There's no issues with the North Node. You want to see planets on the North Node. Mars hitting the North Node is activating anything that's connected to Mars in your chart, your career, your goals. The opposition to the South Node, I mean, Jupiter's not there, so it's not going to make it that much bigger, but I think that there's just going to be a lot of what I want versus what's far away from me or what's at a distance. So it can mean that people are messaging you, people are calling you, you know, you meet somebody, but they're like, oh, I'm not from here, I live in another town. Or if you're in a relationship, there's a lot of communication going back with people at a distance. Family relationships get highlighted a lot here too, because Jupiter's connected to your family through your whole sign 3rd. I am not worried at all about the conjunctions to the North Node, because I know Saturn's in the 2nd house and you're going to be feeling more confident. I do think a lot of this can be connected to you not feeling guilty about having to spend money on yourself or buying things for yourself. I also feel like this is about, you know, and I talk about this in the astro weather. I talk about how throughout time, when we've seen some of these cycles where there's been these conjunctions, it's very rare. But we had one that was in like the early 90s. So I think it was like 1994. We had like a triple conjunction in Capricorn. We also had a Venus retrograde that happened in the end of 2021, beginning of 2022. And that was an inferior conjunction. So what's happening now is like whatever seeds you planted 4 years ago, now they're coming full circle and it's all showing up on your North Node. Ruled by Saturn, and you got Saturn in the 5th. Looking youthful, looking younger, being more physically active, being more productive. I mean, any Capricorn rising has like a killer skin routine, and you guys age in reverse. So perhaps maybe you have like learned some, you know, beauty hacks or, you know, ways to kind of manage your health, or there's things that you're doing. And like now it's really, you're going to be really apparent how different you look compared to how you looked a couple of years ago. And I've seen it all. I've seen people who were like, I lost 150 pounds. I've seen people who got into weightlifting. I've seen people who had like facelifts, or people who have done like crazy regenerative type of work. Always been interested in the natal Sun, Saturn, Mercury placement and how to learn from that. I mean, it's in the 5th, so Sun Saturn's never easy. If you have that natally, it's always like, well, things are difficult. You know, you don't always get like a free pass. You have to work hard for everything you have. And certainly it can mean that there is some mental and some creative blocks that can kind of be happening in your 5th house. But, you know, Saturn is your ruler. So it means that it's your job to be curious, to have fun, to ask questions. It's your job to really prioritize, you know, I think, having fun, and anything that's going to be more kind of, you know, mercurial. Mercury at an 8 means there's an interest in metaphysics, there's an interest in forecasting. Saturn's at a 10, so that means that you're very Saturnian, and then the Sun's at an 11, so it's about like making time to have play and like socialize. Thankfully, it all trines out to your moon. So you're not like this very kind of stale like Capricorn rising. I think we see that a lot, but I like the combination between all the Gemini and the air in your chart, and then also the Capricorn rising. Like when people get to know you, they realize that you're actually very friendly and you're kind of youthful and like, you know, you like to have a good time, but you may not come across like that, you know, like right off the bat, especially Capricorn 10. People who have Capricorn 10 in their chart, I have my Saturn and my Neptune there. It's people who are kind of like, ooh, you know, like they're kind of cold, or it takes some time for them to kind of like warm up to people. And when they may come across as like very conservative or like kind of like grouchy, but the more that people get to know you, they realize that you're kind of like, you have a good sense of humor. Like you're funny. She says, I've been saving for a neck lift. Well, there you go. Taurus is the neck, right? So 2nd house, and then, you know, Mars and Venus is like, yeah, I have this incentive to want to transform my body, and it's sextiling Saturn in the 2nd house, the neck, at a Taurus degree. You got to see past the resting bitch face. I have Venus conjunct Saturn and Neptune at that degree, so I get that a lot. I have like a lot of people who I have really good friends of people that I've worked with in the past, but they were like, when they first started working with me, they were like, I thought you were really mean. And I was like, no, it's just my face. My grandma always told me, if you don't smile, you don't get wrinkles. So, but yeah, I mean, I think you're doing it. I would say if you're going to be making some moves and be thinking about getting serious about doing some surgical stuff, just be really careful. You know, in this next year, there's going to be a Venus retrograde. There's going to be a Mars retrograde. So timing for that's going to be pretty particular, but knowing that you're going to be coming into an eclipse in your 2nd house where it could be putting an emphasis on changing your neck, and then you're going to have another eclipse that's going to be going into your 8th house, trining Saturn. It's possible if it works. I mean, if you can swing it financially, you may have some good transits here to be doing it like at the end of summer. If not, you know, don't be doing it in, you know, October, November, December, January, because we're going to see Venus retrograde and Mars retrograde. So you'll have time to keep doing it as you see Jupiter go into your 8th house of surgery. But there's going to be very specific windows that are going to be positive for it and not. And I would say if you can't swing it by the end of summer, then wait until Jupiter's coming back into a trine with Saturn. And when the North Node's conjunct Pluto in your moon, there's going to be a radical change going on with your neck. Be mindful of your vocal cords. I want to make sure you have somebody good because Pluto's going to hit your moon. Don't do anything with your stomach. Don't do anything with your boobs when Pluto and the North Node are on your moon, okay? That's really important. That'll be in summer of 27. Good luck. All right, who else do we have here? So we've got Amanda, Jessica, Sarah. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. We're taking people in the order that we receive them. I told you there was a lot of people tonight. And if you guys haven't subscribed, please subscribe to the channel. Give me a thumbs up if you like these videos. I appreciate it. David's reminding everybody of that. Thank you. All right. Who else do we have? Okay, Amanda. Amanda, my dear, happy birthday. Yeah, the full moon's right on my Jupiter, so I was like, it's going to be busy in my 10th house. Amanda, happy birthday. I know it's been difficult. I was reading your comment. No, that's not her. Let's see. There we go. Another birthday in the house. So Amanda says, 25 was less than ideal, especially in my romantic relationship that ended a few weeks ago. Please look at my chart and let me know what you see. Today's my birthday, and hopefully 2026 will be much better for love, money, and health. So, yeah, across the board. So what city do you currently live in? I'll look at your, I want to look at your solar return really quick. So it's the 41st. So you're in an annual perfection year. Let's see, what is it? 6? Okay. Atlanta. So if you're in an annual perfection year 6, Aquarius season is a big deal, obviously. So end of January, going into February, huge focus on your health. Eclipses there, all these planets going through there, big changes with your routine, focus on your health. That's what you want to do. And then you also need to watch Saturn. So when Saturn changes signs and goes into Aries, it's going to go into your whole sign 8th house, which is like a key time where people want to save. They focus on their investments. They focus on, tax-related matters, or, wanting to get serious about retirement accounts and all that stuff. And then you're going to want to continue to watch when planets are conjunct Saturn. So the huge emphasis on saving and transforming finances, especially in February through April. And then, as you're going through your 6th house here, the 6th house is like the house that we're doing all of this stuff to kind of improve our health, improve our habits, improve our job, anything that's also connected to wellness. And that house is where we're preparing before we go into the 7th house year, which will be next year, which is very relationship oriented. Now, this is not me saying you have to wait until the beginning of next year for relationships, but there's going to be a lot of relationship stuff that's really going to solidify then. This is your solar return. So it's giving you Virgo rising, which you're born with. It's earlier, but it's a Virgo rising. It's putting your sun, which is your solar return, in the 4th, on the cusp of the 5th house, with Venus and Mars side by side. So it's basically saying one relationship just ended, Mars-Venus. Another one is emerging, Sun-Mars, which is going to be highly transformative. And like maybe that relationship ending got you to really reflect on, what works and what doesn't work. But this is a very passionate year. There's a huge transformation of self-expression. I think with it being a Saturn energy, you're getting a lot more serious about, dating with a purpose and having, an agenda or boundaries, or knowing exactly what you want out of relationships. You are Mercury. So Mercury being in the 4th house is there's a lot of quiet time and reflecting on your home. It does trine the South Node. So it's about getting rest and kind of grieving and releasing stuff. And you also have Mercury in opposition to the moon, which means there's a side of you that's like, I really just want to be fixated on the past, or I just want to stay where I am or in my comfort zone. But emotionally, it's like, no, girl, you got to get back out there. It's going to be focusing on your career, focusing also on having a solid friend group as the moon's approaching a conjunction of Jupiter, being more focused on your home and family goals. And it's a full moon birthday. So that means everything's going to feel bigger this year when it comes to the themes of your private life and also your public life. Now, all of this is ruled by Saturn, which is in your 7th. And the North Node is right on your descendant. So it means that pretty much from now through March, there is like a huge reassessment of dating and relationships. There's no guarantee, okay, that everything is going to be necessarily immediately better, but there can be like this sense of feeling like you're kind of healing between now and March, and you're kind of really opening yourself up to new cycles in relationships, but be careful going back, okay, because Venus is in the 4th. Saturn is connected to that. So there can be a sense of you kind of going back and forth with, is he going to come back? Are they going to come back? No. Focus on healing. Don't focus on dating yet. Probably after Pisces season, you'll be more ready. And because Jupiter represents partnerships and Mercury is in the 4th house, which is you, it's in opposition to Jupiter and the moon. Like, you need friends who are going to hold you accountable and be like, hey, you have to come and do stuff with us, or friends that are going to try to set you up with people or introduce you to people. You want to go to parties, you want to go to barbecues, like you want to go to like family get-togethers, because that'll improve the likelihood of you meeting someone, especially because Jupiter is also trining Saturn in the 7th. And then what I usually like to do is I like to lay the natal chart out on top of this. This is one of my secrets. And when I put the natal chart on top of it, I like to look at where there's any kind of connections, okay? So obviously the biggie is that you got Mars coming up into conjunction with the descendant. So it's also saying I had to cut something off. You've got your natal moon and North Node conjunct Uranus, so it wants you to be more kind of spontaneous with traveling or with education. You have got Neptune, which is conjunct Mercury, where you're like, okay, they left, what do I do? And you've got the Sun on the cusp of the 5th house, and you've got Jupiter in opposition to Jupiter. I mean, it in many ways, it's almost saying it's like everything that you're used to doing, you're having to do the opposite now. And you're kind of like reevaluating, well, how have I dated? How have I been working? Like, how is my kind of health and lifestyle bad? And now you're trying to do something that's going to be like different. And knowing that Saturn and Neptune are going to go into your 8th house too, I mean, you know, whole sign, I guess, but Placidus, this is more talking about approaching relationships in a brand new way. Like the period of being with people that are not sure, wishy-washy, or they don't know, or they're unsure, or they're not clear, that's over. As soon as Saturn and Neptune go in Aries in your 7th, it's like you're going to basically have better boundaries with partners, and you're not just going to immediately trust people or, you know, get into relationships with people. You're going to make them work for it. There is some possibility of going back and forth with, you know, hearing from the past in February, but I'd be very careful because you're going to have to assert your boundaries again with some kind of a relationship in April. So, you know, April on, things get easier. And then the other thing to kind of think about is that you're going to start having eclipses in the part of your chart that is very social, right? Your 11th house. And then you're also going to be having eclipses that are going to be happening in the part of your chart that is about kind of dating and like new hobbies and creativity. You know, I mean, she says, I need a solid plan as a Virgo rising. Yeah, but the problem is that you're so Virgo, 29, that you bring in something that's so Pisces, 29. And my advice to you is that, like, you know, 29 degrees ascendants, in my perspective, I think you guys came here to, you might be on one of like your last go rounds, like soul wise, like there's something that you're completing that you need to complete in this. And it means that your Mercury and your Jupiter are really prominent. And they are, obviously Mercury is conjunct Uranus, so you're learning to kind of be a little bit more open-minded and spontaneous, or even astrology is helping you understand relationships. Jupiter's in the 4th, so people can come back to you, right? So, I mean, it's about being like, okay, I got to keep things moving, and if something's meant to be, it's meant to be, and it'll happen at the right time. But I want you to be approaching relationships where you want to start new across the board, and the people who come in have to be less talk, more action. Saturn and Neptune means they need to have a plan, they need to be confident, they're ready for something, and they're ready to start building with you. Otherwise, you know, you're going to find that there's going to be, you know, bigger challenges, I think, down the road if you're not choosing people more wisely, or if you're not really, you know, having appropriate boundaries with people. Because for the next several years, Saturn's going to square your Sun, it's going to square your Jupiter. You know, Neptune's also going to be squaring your Neptune. And so if you feel unfulfilled in some way, shape, or form, that you're like, oh, I don't like where I'm living or where I'm at in my state of my life, you're not going to just so easily hand over like authority or like give your time to people if you feel like they're wasting your time. He's come and gone so many times. This was my last 3.5-year relationship. He was all talk. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, 0 degrees is about starting over, and very, very, very few, because I'm talking to a lot of Virgo risings, I'm talking to a lot of Libra risings, very few people have been able to stay in existing relationships and be like, oh, this is going to work, right? Because that Aries 0 degrees wants a hard reset. It basically either wants to make the person that you're with completely do a 180, and if they're not capable, they're going to bounce, or it wants to bring you in somebody who's so totally different of what you're used to being with. And so Saturn can be somebody who's older coming in. Neptune can be somebody who's an artist, a photographer, a a musician. It could also bring somebody in who's very spiritual or they're into like religious stuff. Could be, not always. It could also mean that it brings you like a relationship coach, right? Or like a relationship where you're working with like an astrologer or somebody who's kind of like working like as a therapist, especially with that being your whole sign eighth. And you'll find that you're bringing in people who are more assertive, more masculine, more physically active. They're going to have more of like this kind of Aries archetype. And the North Node's doing eclipses in your whole sign eighth. Start doing hobbies, start going to the gym, even though you don't want to do it. The eclipse is going to be on your Venus in the 6th house, whole sign. So you're either going to meet somebody at work or you're going to meet somebody through some physical activity. I think it's a great time to maybe try to meet somebody in some places where you're finding people who are working on themselves and they're being productive. And that's what I would be doing basically, you know, anytime between February and April. It's going to get better, don't worry. But the next year is when it's really going to perfect, when you go into your 7th house year. So when you're 30, when you're 18, 30, and 42, these are the years that you have big relationship years. And it looks like it is going to be something that's going to be pretty prominent, long lasting. Watch for foreigners too, because you got Jupiter to 21. Or people who are kind of like culturally different than you, or they can be from like a foreign land. That could be a common theme. Hopefully that's helpful, and I hope you enjoy your birthday. You're welcome. All right, we got Jessica, and then Sarah, and then we've got Free Spirit. All right, so let's see, Jessica. All right, Jessica's a Capricorn rising. I'm going to make sure this is right here. Nope, that's not her. Jessica Z. Jessica. Is that her? 821, 81. Sorry guys, I thought I put her in here. There we go. All right, Jessica, 821, 81, and that was in Dallas at 7:59. So she's a Virgo rising. Virgo rising, Sun in Leo, Moon in Taurus. Okay. All right, let's see what she has to say. So she says, hoping to find a better fit in career or find a hobby with purpose. I'm currently helping my father with work. He loves working with me in real estate, but I feel guilty that maybe my calling is something different. All right, hobbies. Good time as a Virgo rising to be thinking about this. And honestly, it's probably been on your mind for like a little bit, Jessica, because hobbies deal with your 5th house. And it looks like over the last year, Pluto has been in conjunction to your South Node. So there's been this sense of, I really want to break free from the daily grind. I'd like to do something that's kind of different, more unconventional, more creative. Like you need something new. And so now you're coming out of that Pluto South Node conjunction. And maybe it's just been like work. Good for you financially though, because it's been trining Venus and Saturn. So even though there's been some sacrifices, it's probably paid off for you financially. Thinking about it from the perspective of also like the Sun in Leo, you know, you've had a Mercury retrograde in Sag, there's been planets going through Sag, and it's been a lot of like, well, how can I make more time to be creative? But really what I'm getting at is, you know, Virgo risings are seeing this massive stellium of planets, you know, Mercury, which is you, Mars, which is your passion and learning, the Sun, which is something you kind of do by yourself, you know, Venus, which is something you indulge in that you love, is all going through Capricorn for the next month in your 5th. So there is this massive buildup towards doing more of the things that you like to do, getting serious and committing to some new hobby, possibly taking a course or learning at the same time because it's trining. And then you're going to see all these planets hit Pluto on your South Node, which basically means you can become so fixated with something that you're like, oh my God, could I see myself quitting my job, you know, to do this, you know, at the end of January? And I'd be like, pump the brakes, don't do anything crazy. But I can see something that is coming online. And, you know, for hobbies, because Capricorn, it rules your 5th house and it's ruled by Saturn, you got Venus and Saturn conjunct in Libra. Most Venus-Saturn people aren't thrilled about that conjunction, but you have an exalted Saturn You've got Venus in its home sign. It's in your first house and it trines your fifth. So, you know, what is it that you want to do? Anything that's connected to art, design, anything that's connected to digital design, anything that's connected to entertainment or anything connected to that kind of stuff. Another Virgo rising tonight. Yep. I wonder what it is, right? Because it's going to be something like, for example, like I have a lot of late Virgo rising, like Libra rising people in my life that I know who are my friends, and I'm one too. So we're going through these transits, and all of us are like, we want to do something different. And Aquarius is party planning, party rentals. It could be something that's connected to astrology, divination. It could also be things that's about entertaining or hosting, socializing, starting clubs, starting events, things that are online, like the list goes on. But watching Pluto now start trining your Venus, trining your Saturn, it's like, dude, do something, right? And then Uranus is going to go into your 10th house this year too. And that's also about radically kind of changing your career. Uranus is going to be trining your Venus and your Saturn. What is it you want to do? You have excellent taste. Venus and Saturn, it's refined, it's classy, but you have excellent taste. I think the second, no, it's the first decan. Let me see, hold on, I've got some notes here. The second decan of Aquarius, let me see here, give me 1 second. I can tell you specifically what that is. I have like a little cheat sheet that I use. Okay, so the first 10 degrees of the 5th house is about social life. Okay, so this goes at 11 degrees. So this is actually going to be closer to the second decan. So this is about pleasure. So creative self-expression, co-creating, popularity, sports, romance, children, investments, taking risks. Money is good, creativity is high. I mean, the fact that you're going to have some grand air trines, I mean, it really depends on what you want to do. You know, Venus and Saturn mean that you can do something that's going to be about investing in something just because you like doing it. You don't have to turn it into a business. Mercury is going to more rule your career, and like the South Node is going to hit your Mercury. It's hitting your Mercury, so you're burnt out. You just need something that you need that's fun to do, that's going to be mentally stimulating. And being that Mercury rules your mind and things that are going to be more logical and practical, Aquarius is not. These are going to be things that are like, nope, it's different, it's weird, it's wacky, let's see what we like. Yeah, Venus conjunct, no. Be thankful that you have Venus conjunct Saturn with an exalted Saturn and Venus in its home sign. This means that you prioritize making money first, you make your money so then you can have your pleasure. So now it's like, well, what do you want to do? You know, and I think the South Node is basically saying that nothing has been bringing you pleasure. All of the joy has been sucked out of, you know, your free time because you've been working too much. Here's an idea. When the eclipse comes in Aquarius around mid-February and it squares Uranus, it means this is about you creating more time, like making more time to do the things that you love. And like, yeah, it might mean that dad's a little disappointed, but hey, you're going to disappoint some people with an eclipse in opposition to your sign. It might be like, hey, Dad, there's going to be some changes, or I'm slowing down. I want to, you know, I'm not leaving. I'm just kind of segueing a little bit. And I think you may do that because shortly after, then you're going to have a Mercury retrograde that's going to be going into your 6th house, which means you're going to go, yep, I might be taking time away from clients, or maybe I'm traveling, or, you know, I'm going to be taking a course. And then you're going to have Saturn come into opposition with your Venus and your Saturn. I mean, the literal translation of Saturn going into the 8th, opposing your Saturn and your Venus, is you going, I can't be responsible for making other people happy, or, you know, making other people money, or feeling financially or kind of career entangled to people. I have to really stick to my values. Thankfully, Pluto is going to trine that. Uranus is going to trine that too. So if money is good and you feel like you need a little bit of freedom, you know, give yourself the freedom to do something different, especially in the spring. And then when the eclipses really start kind of rolling into your 5th house, which is not going to be for a little while, then there's probably going to be some bigger changes. And that'll be happening for you around the beginning of 2028 when you have some eclipses conjunct Pluto on your South Node, and then you're kind of working your way out of something. So it could be about 2 years of you, you know, getting into the swing of doing something different. But She said, I used to work in entertainment, fashion, New York. Here in Texas, it's not so easy. No, probably not, because you're in a different place. But Aquarius is the internet, right? So you have your South Node there. So you're not used to being like, oh, I'm the center of attention. You have your North Node in Leo in the 11th house, which means you have to work with groups. You have to work with models. You've had to work with celebrities. You've had to work with people who have a lot of money and they're like regal, right? North Node in the 11th. Now you're preparing to have the North Node come into what will be your 5th house, which is a reverse nodal return. So from somebody who has their North Node in Aquarius, I can tell you in my 5th house, it's like for a long time I was like, this is really weird. I'm going to get on the internet and I'm going to do readings and it's going to be live and I'm going to be the center of attention. It's working out pretty good so far. Obviously touch wood, you know, but doing something that's different, weird, and unconventional. I mean, I've been watching some stuff about the trends of what's going on, and like we're moving away from influencers. We're moving more in the direction of like live shopping. So we're seeing people who are like live, you know, doing reviews and tutorials, and they're trying on clothes and they're kind of like getting affiliated and stuff with, you know, like showing groups of people like what they're using. And it's not pre-filming, it's doing it in action. They're doing styling in action, or they're doing like hairstyling or other things. And so I look at this and I'm like, what do you want to do? Do you want to teach people how to style? Do you want to do like a live stream or something? I mean, do you want to do a blog? Do you want to start your own group and like, you know, start generating your own followers? Because you could. You would just see that perpetually kind of build as the North Node gets closer and closer into your 5th house. So the eclipse is what's going to kind of kick that off. But that is going to require you in the spring to be willing to kind of make some changes with your schedule. And like, yeah, you're going to disappoint some people, but as a Leo, I think I would be really open-minded to the fact that it could bring in clients or it could bring in friends. And then Jupiter's going to go through, you know, your 1st house, and it's going to just bring you nothing but like a lot of like recognition in about a year. Might be worth considering trying to build something on the side, especially if it's something you love. You know, this is about passion projects and taking your time and doing it slow. But I'd love to see with Uranus going through your 10th house that you're going more in the direction of like teaching and styling and training, if that's really what you want to do, because you have excellent style and taste with Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. Are you kidding me? Like, did you work with like cosmetic brands or like jewelry too? Because I've seen a lot of people who have those placements that have kind of done that stuff. Yeah, you might like it. Your Saturn opposition, I mean, I've only had one of them as an adult so far, so I can only speak from that experience. But from what I've seen from clients and what I've experienced, when Saturn was in opposition to my Saturn, I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. You know, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And you usually thrust yourself into the house that Saturn is going through. So then you know, feel some suppression or, you know, some limitation. In this case, Saturn and Neptune is like, well, I have people who rely on me, or my dad needs to make money because he works with me, or my partner's going through something and I need to pay the bills. And like, I get it. You're the breadwinner. I can see that. But it's about recognizing where you can't be constantly giving to other people, whether that's time, resources, and like feeling like you're putting your kind of creative needs on back burner. Because Pluto's trining all of this. It either wants you to like start a business, get serious about a hobby, have a kid, you know, it wants you to do something like that while it's kind of going through the 5th house, because it wants to regenerate, re-stimulate all of that creative energy. And it's giving you the resources to be able to do that, you know? So hopefully that's helpful. I want to see what you do. Come through here and let me know what happens in the spring. All right. We have got, who do we have? We have one person left, I think. Am I right? Free Spirit. Oh no, I take that back. We have Sarah. Sarah's like, don't forget me. We've got Sarah and then we've got Free Spirit. All right, let me pull up Sarah. It's almost your birthday too, huh, Sarah? On the 4th? January 4th, 84, 2 a.m. She says, I guess I was curious about the full moon opposite the sun on my sun and all the other planets in Capricorn affecting it. It looked like a lot of planets doing something. I've never had my chart looked at. Thank you. All right, Sarah. Well, let's talk about it. So, first of all, Scorpio risings are going to do well with this. Capricorns and Scorpio risings are going to do well with this because all of the conjunctions that are taking place in Capricorn involve Venus, which is a benefic, so it's going to bring you relationships, money, connection. It's also connecting to Mars, which is your chart ruler, and it's on the move in the 3rd. So I'm going to say that a lot of Scorpio risings, or in your case, are going to be like, I want to move, I want to travel, I want to make a change with my vehicle. There can be much more focus on learning. There can be this passionate connection, you know, with somebody online. It can also be bringing you a lot of support because it's ruled by Saturn, and Saturn's in the 5th, to get more serious about creative projects. So like if you're a Scorpio rising who's writing, blogging, teaching, if you're wanting to book a trip, you're wanting to go somewhere, if you're wanting to meet someone, you know, traveling or getting online or any kind of like work related kind of networking events can be good for relationships as well. And, you know, yeah, it's going to be right on top of your sun, which is also really big for your career. Like Scorpio risings, their voices are going to be heard a lot over like the next week or two. They're going to say something, they're going to post something, they're going to have a conversation with somebody that could change the trajectory of their career or their relationships. And I would be enjoying it because, man, when Mars hits your moon, I mean, that is a time where, yeah, you can feel a little emotionally agitated, but it could also bring you an opportunity to start a walking routine, a writing routine. You might go on a trip. It will oppose Jupiter, so it can also prompt some kind of like long distance relationship, or maybe you're working with a coach or a mentor at a distance, or maybe there is a new spiritual practice or courses or classes that you're taking. The other thing that I would watch for is that you're going to see all of this then go into Aquarius, and like honestly, not as friendly for these Scorpio placements, because Venus is going to hit Pluto, major transformations in regards to relationships with home and family. Sun's going to hit it, major transformations with the career. Mars is going to hit it. Like these are really great aspects before the end of January. Looks a little rocky right before you're coming into eclipses in the 4th house. She says, you're welcome. So if Sarah's here, you know, I'm not worried about the conjunctions. I think this is a time to really kind of like speak up. Maybe your beliefs around your career and your home and family are changing. Maybe that Jupiter opposition is leading you to shift the way that you also look at creating and or dating. So I don't know if you're in a relationship, but it can be bringing up some, you know, like romantic kind of connections. And when you say that you've never really seen something like this, yeah, it's very unusual. Go and watch the video that I put out on Sunday for the Astro Weather, where I talk about all the cycles with Mars and Venus with this, because it's not typical, and it's giving a lot of strength to Scorpio risings when it comes to their career, especially if you do anything with like websites, media, anything connected also to, you know, business that might be kind of like local. You're probably going to be feeling like you're wanting to drive a lot or run around town and get a lot of things done. I would be journaling and keeping notes of all of the ideas that are coming up for you when it comes to creative hobbies, relationships. Maybe if you are wanting to get on a dating app, you know, Mars and Venus could make that possible, or you meet somebody kind of locally. It could be good for business interactions as well. There she is, hoping for a new relationship this year. So you need to see something strong happening with either transit or natal Venus. And it looks like you've had Uranus kind of opposing your Venus. So it means that maybe there's been a lot of like sporadic relationship stuff. But Jupiter in Cancer means that a lot of Capricorns are going to enter into relationships with people who might be at a distance or live somewhere else. But nothing's really happening with your Venus right now. You're going to see down the road, Saturn's going to start trining your Venus. So that'll happen in March. And I think your love life is heating up a little bit more, pretty much March through about what appears to be July. And then you're going to have Chiron go into your 7th house briefly. So that's about healing relationships. Uranus will oppose your Venus throughout this next year. So there's not a lot of stability, but things actually start to really, I think, start to stabilize when Saturn is getting ready to go into your 7th house and hitting Juno. It does look like there's going to need to be something that's going to change with either your home life or your relationship to where you're living, or be more open to be maybe searching or expanding your search with, you know, places and people who might be elsewhere. And your career is really going to be blossoming this year. You know, I know you may not necessarily be looking for it, but Jupiter and eclipses going into your 10th house, your career is going to be great. It's just the relationship stuff with Uranus in opposition to Venus. You need to be mindful that there can be people who don't have the same values as you, and you are a Venus-Uranus person. So even though you want commitment, you attract people who either are non-committal, or like there is a sense of needing a little bit of like space and freedom in relationships. My guess is looking at your age, because you're in an Aries year right now, at least until next year, 42 is going to be the bigger year. So this is a year of more kind of getting things in order and clearing out all the old relationship habits that didn't work. And then as you're going into next year, you're going to find that that's going to be where things are really going to start to take off, especially about March through about May of 2027. So, hopefully that gives you some insight, and I'm hopeful that, if you're willing to get out there, travel, meet people, get on apps, if that's something you want to do. You have Venus conjunct Uranus, so it's not necessarily a bad idea. Keep an open mind too, because your Venus is at a 3 and Uranus will oppose that. So you kind of need to keep your options open to make sure that you find one that you like. All right, we've got Free Spirit, and she has got a synastry question. So we've got you, the Sag rising, Sun in Taurus, Moon in Cancer. And then we've got the other person who is August 675. And she says, relationship that's moving quickly. I have to pace him. Thank you. I'm May 20th and he is August 6th. Okay. So you guys have some interesting synastry. I like that you said that you have to pace him and he's got Mars on your sun. And you've got Jupiter conjunct Mars too, which is like, that's kind of sexy. He's got Moon to Moon with you, so emotionally you're very similar, and his Juno sits on your Moon, so that's really good. He feels like, oh my gosh, like you're like wife material, he wants to kind of like wipe you up. And then South Node, Sun, and Juno is also similar kind of relational karma. Venus South Node is pretty close as well. And he's got Moon Saturn, so usually these aren't people who are very like emotionally vulnerable, but because he's got Moon to Moon with you, I think he's a little bit more open with you than most people. And I'm assuming what's going on is right now, or in this last year, Saturn and Neptune have been squaring your Venus. So there's a lot of like, okay, I've been alone. Now somebody comes along. I'm trying to figure out where I want to kind of settle and, where am I going to be moving? And then boom, somebody comes in and then you can have some kind of question marks about whether or not it's going to be this dude. A lot of Leos and Leo risings are going to be very fixated on relationships this year because the eclipses that are going to start happening in Aquarius, and they're kind of more open to the idea of like really focusing on, being able to get into more serious committed relationships. He's got Neptune in your 12th. He's got South Node and Mars in your 6th. So you don't quit jobs, change schedules and stuff for him because that can be not ideal. And like his Mars and his South Node on your Sun is like, you can feel like sometimes he's like exhausting. Like he's like a dog with a bone with stuff with you. Let me turn this around. Let me see his chart. Oh, so he's a Leo rising. So that's part of it. So he's got all these planets in the 12th house. So he's a Leo, but he's got like this like kind of Piscean vibe. Your Mars is in opposition to his ascendant on the descendant. So it's a game of like chase, like he's chasing you. And the eclipse is going to be in his 7th house, which might symbolize a huge turning point in a relationship, especially around mid-February here soon. That eclipse will square the North and the South Node. So is there discussions regarding like, who's going to move or who's living where? Because those squares to the North Node, the South Node, and the 10th and the 4th is impacting changes with where you guys live or your guys' kind of like work routines. And like you're very work focused with all your 6th house stuff. South Node Sun makes me feel like also he will kind of look at you as somebody who has some kind of like power over him, and not in a bad way, but he'll kind of feel like, oh, I want to do what she wants me to do because it's in the 10th. And usually fixed signs, I mean, I'm not going to say you can't, but like, Tauruses and Leos are going to be a lot more dramatic than Tauruses. Tauruses are a lot more chill and like relaxed, and maybe he's willing to kind of, let you take the lead. Maybe he's a little bit more passive with these planets in the 12th. I'd like to see, Mars and Venus is seeing each other. Obviously, his Venus is in Virgo. It is slightly trining your Mars. Your Venus is in Cancer. It is sextiling his Venus. And is it seeing his Mars? It's seeing his Pluto. Let's see, where is his Mars at? Yeah, I mean, it's about a 2-degree trine, so it's an out of sign. So, well, he's obsessed with you because your Lilith sits on his Venus, babe. He's like, I want it, I gotta have it, I need more of it, and then his Lilith opposes your Lilith. So when you see Venus-Lilith aspects, yes, they become obsessed with you. And I think the moon to moon is a really deep psychic connection. The only thing is like moon-Saturn. You know, like I have found like with moon-Saturn aspects, it's one thing if it's in opposition, but when it's conjunct, he can deal with it because he's moon-Saturn. Like I think he's got some abandonment issues from his parents. Like moon-Saturn and Cancer in the 12th, that's like mommy issues. Like I don't know the story with his mom or what happened, but I'm just telling you. And that squares Jupiter, so he's very sensitive, and it also squares Uranus in, in Libra. So he's got the placements of somebody who's like looking for mommy in a relationship and wants to like do home and domestic stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that. Like he's really lovable because he's got that Venus in Virgo. Like he's a fixer, he's a giver, but he might drive you a little batty. Like that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting. Usually when I see moon Saturn synastry, you know, the moon person eventually grows tired of the Saturn person. And with moon Saturn, he's going to be very rigid in like the ways of how he grew up, his emotional dynamics, or where he lives, or like his home or his culture. So there could be the sense of him being like, no, you come here, we do it this way, you be with me. And like he may be very rigid about that. You might be like, I don't know how I feel about that. So I don't know what the dynamic is and like how long you guys have been kind of talking, or if you've like met or been around each other long, but the cuckoo's going to come out of this one. You're going to see it, especially knowing that Jupiter is kind of going through here right now, and then there's going to be eclipse on his descendant. Like if you're going to start being like, I need some space, he might freak out a little bit. If that happens, especially in February when the eclipses come through. The synastry is not terrible. Like your Mars and your Venuses see each other. It's just the Lilith stuff that you need to like be mindful of. But hey, I mean, sometimes, sometimes people like that. I mean, I don't know. I'm not too big of a fan of like the Venus, the Lilith thing, because they'll kind of treat you like a little sex icon, and they'll like obsess over you. But like it almost feels like it's like too much, like they want to like wear your skin. And then it gets to a point where you're just kind of like, all right, well, I'm not really feeling like this person's taking it seriously, because it's so much like of a physical connection that it's hard to kind of get beyond that, right? Mommy issues. Yeah, just keep an eye on that. Any guy who's got moon Saturn, especially in Cancer in the 12th, there are mom issues. And it's highly aspect in his chart, squaring Jupiter and Uranus. And it won't come out until he goes through relationships. Now together, you guys have a Libra rising, Sun in Cancer, Moon in Cancer, and it looks to me like Jupiter's sitting on top of your Jupiter and your Moon. So there's a lot of like, we could be together, it could be forever. And like there's a lot of oppositions going on in the chart right now. So it's a lot of kind of feeling like you're being pulled in two different directions, where you thought your life was going to go one way, and then this guy shows up and he's got a whole other plan. And it's all going to start squaring Chiron. So you'll find that by the end of January, if somebody's like not feeling like they're willing to kind of go with the direction of what the other person wants, then they're going to kind of get their feelings hurt. There could be some really kind of sharp feelings about it. Your chart's ruled by Venus, and you have Pluto coming into an opposition with Venus between the 10th and the 5th. So that's also saying somebody's going to have to make a big home or lifestyle change. You're going to have Saturn and Mars coming into the 7th, which means April and May, the relationship gets tested. You can move through it. And then you're going to start to see Saturn come into the 7th house and square the North and the South node, and also Mercury and the Moon. So it's like, for this relationship to go full circle, you're going to have to really focus on whether or not you guys are actually a match in the spring. I think that the real test would be summer of next year, when Saturn opposes Saturn and then it opposes Pluto. I would really get to know this person first before you make any dramatic home or life changes. Because with this composite chart, Saturn and Pluto sit on the ascendant and they oppose Mars. It means one person's going to become a little bit more kind of like limiting and controlling. The other person's like, I want freedom. And then it squares the North and the South node. So, you know, taking you away from home, work, family, things that you need to thrive is what you want to watch for. Because this person has a tendency to be totally fine, like being isolated, being in their own world. And there's nothing wrong with that. But knowing that he's got Aquarius on the descendant, like a lot of relationships are unconventional or inconsistent or don't stick quite literally, because they're like, I don't want to just stay in bed with you all the time. I don't want to just be with you 24/7. Like, I need some space. And he doesn't understand that. He can kind of like smother people, you know, with all that Cancer in his 12th house. But Jupiter's hitting his Juno, his moon, his Saturn. I mean, he feels like he's met somebody who's culturally different, who's like the perfect partner. And I think he's really excited about it. And as it's coming into a square with Uranus, it definitely does kind of speed up the conversations about relationships or moving or commitment or like, you know, that kind of stuff. And a lot of it still needs to be reevaluated. And I think that there's going to be a period pretty much from February through April in his astrology that indicates that somebody's going to be like, hey, like, let's just see how it goes. Let's feel it out. And he may not be totally pleased with that, but you guys are going to need a little bit more time before you can figure out whether or not this is going to be like a sure thing. And there's a lot of moving parts and other things that are kind of connected to that to kind of fully bring you guys together, right? Exciting, but make sure it's more than just like that physical, like initial kind of like draw or interest. I want to make sure that it's more than that. There has to be more substance to the relationship. Especially like with your chart, you know, Saturn and Neptune are squaring Venus right now. So, you know, don't make any dramatic decisions in relationships. And this is also about you kind of figuring out more what it is that you want, you know, Saturn and Neptune going into your 5th, dating with a purpose and having, you know, some real serious needs to feel like you're either feeling fulfilled in the love department or that, you know, maybe you're dating with a purpose with intention to get married or relocate or have a family. Mercury is going to dictate and determine more of when you're going to do that stuff. And I think when Jupiter is sextiling your Mercury over the summer, Saturn starting to sextile your Mercury, it's going to feel a little bit more clear the second half of 2026 going into 2027. And it is kind of looking like there is going to be some major kind of commitments in the summer of 2027. So let me know what happens with this guy. Because like I said, I see the connection, but I also am kind of like, I think he's got some like closeted mommy issues, and you're going to be like, what the heck? Especially when you find out that he's like, I just want to like keep you and be with you all the time. You're going to be like, oh my God. Because that I can see in his chart, that's what kind of pushes like partners away in a way. Hopefully that was helpful for you. All right, well, that was a good one, guys. That was lots of interesting questions this Friday. So thank you guys for hanging out with me. Thank you guys for liking, commenting, sharing. Give me a thumbs up. Smash the subscription button so that way you guys can see more of these videos. And we always here on Fridays. Sunday, we're going to be doing the astro weather. We've also got the 2026 predictions and everything out for the astrology. The horoscopes are out for January. So if you guys want to see that stuff, check it out. I hope you guys enjoy your Friday, and I will be back here soon. And I hope you guys have a beautiful full moon in Cancer, and I will see all of you guys very soon. So take care.